Throughout history, certain events have shaped our world in ways that go far beyond their immediate impact. November 22nd, 1963. September 11th, 2001. March 2020. Each moment marked not just by tragedy, but by the questions that followed. The Warren Commission, the 9/11 Commission, emergency powers that became permanent. From Dallas to New York to global lockdowns, patterns emerge for those willing to look. The same institutions, the same responses, the same consolidation of power. Recent events continue this trajectory. Butler, Pennsylvania, Manhattan's streets, each incident followed by familiar narratives, familiar solutions. Meanwhile, in boardrooms from Davos to Bilderberg, the world's most powerful gather behind closed doors. Central banks coordinate policy. Intelligence agencies share resources. Global forums set agendas that nations follow. The World Economic Forum speaks of stakeholder capitalism. The Bilderberg Group meets in secrecy. Ancient orders maintain their influence. Some call it conspiracy, others call it coordination. But the connections are there, documented and undeniable. The question isn't whether these networks exist, it's whether we're brave enough to acknowledge their influence on the world we inhabit. The dots are there. We just have to be willing to connect them.
All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Welcome in. We're gonna get into the usual late night stuff tonight. Whatever people want to get into, we go wherever the chat wants to go. And let me just say hello to some people here in the chat. I see Pop and Switch is here. What's up, Pop and Switch? We got E-Potty in the house. There's always trouble when E-Potty's in the house. It's just Kara. What's up, Kara? Good to see you. Shawley Redacted. We got to get you up tonight. Talk some psychology, buddy. Jessica, what's up? Welcome. Good to see you. It's good to see some familiar faces. Then Mai, good to see you. Welcome. No talkie before coffee. Good to see you too. My handler is in the house. Causing trouble as usual. All right. So yeah, it was an interesting day for me. Typical weekend day as far as getting up, doing stuff around the pad, laundry, and all that fun stuff. And then I went for a little motorcycle ride. And then I had a gig earlier. So I may be buzzed. Allegedly. I did have some wine at the gig. So you never know what could happen. But yeah, it's good to see everybody. And hopefully we'll get more people in to participate in the conversation. And, you know, we've talked a lot recently about the Idaho 4 case. And, you know, I'm always open to discussing things that people bring up. And I will be tonight, as always. Like, I have no problem with, in fact, I like when people stir things up, bring up different ideas related to the Idaho 4K, so I'm down with that. But it's also fun sometimes to just divert away from that and either talk about big picture things or totally fun, random things. I've definitely talked about a lot of things: music, movies, books, whatever people want to talk about is cool with me. Yeah, what's up? Free spirit girl. Good to see you. I like that. Hey, fellow truth seekers. I like that. I look at myself as a truth seeker. I would imagine that most people that would listen to any of my content or watch any of my content would be truth seekers. It's a tough space to be in the world we live in today, to be a truth seeker, because you take a lot of shrapnel when you're a truth seeker. You do, especially the last 6 years. I've taken my fair share of shrapnel because I'm generally a pretty outspoken and opinionated person. And, you know, people don't like that sometimes, especially if the things that you speak about are threatening to their psyche. So I like the truth seekers. All right, Lynn Mai, good for you. Look, I don't drink alcohol much, but when I play gigs, I'll have a couple of drinks. And today's gig was a little weird. I was supposed to play outside, and there were thunderstorms like lingering in the area. And in the mountains, when you get rain or a thunderstorm or something like that, it gets cold really fast. It's different than like sea level. The temperature drops a lot at higher elevation when it rains or the clouds roll in. And so normally I play outside. They moved me inside, which was better. But it's a little weird. The vibe's a little weird because usually the people that sit inside don't necessarily want to hear the music. And so you got people inside, then it cleared up a little bit. People sat outside, but I was inside. It was good. It went fine, but you know, it was one of those gigs. Philly girl, good to see you. Yeah, sometimes people don't like that. I've surely pissed off a few people in my day because you know, part of it is that I'm from the East Coast and I'm sarcastic. Part of it is that I'm opinionated and I address issues that some people don't want to speak about. Come on, E-Potty. I don't want to chalk it up to drinking. Give me a little credit, buddy, but I like it. I like it. Green Eclectic Mama, good to see you too. Saturday night, I'm great. My handler seems to be good. She's hasn't given me too much shit tonight. She keeps me in line. She keeps me in line. We give each other shit. I love it. Yeah. Um, well, Georgia is a whole different ball game, right? Think about it. I was in Atlanta in July, like 4 years ago, visiting old friends. And man, they don't call it Hotlanta for nothing, man. And it was a heat wave as well. Holy shit, man, was it hot. It rained for like 10 minutes and you literally could see the steam rising off the street. It was like a sauna. By the way, I like people giving me shit, so I have no problem with people busting my chops. Maureen, what's up? Good to see you. All right, it's good. It's good. We got some of the late night ramblers here. I like it. But where I live, here's the thing. I live at like 8,000 feet above sea level. So when it rains here, it could be like 80, 90 degrees here. And if it rains, it'll drop like 30 degrees just like that. It's crazy. It's totally different in the mountains. All right. Like, I don't like Foxy has this comment here. I don't like anymore to like have verbal scraps and stuff with people. But I don't mind a debate with people. The problem is some people don't really understand what debating is. If you're going to challenge something that somebody says, you have to I mean, it should be a given. You have to be able to step up and support your argument. Hey, a duck on quack. Good to see you. Right on. Cool. It's good to see the familiar names. Yeah, I mean, for me, when I have had disagreements with people, certainly as I've gotten older, I typically will not state an opinion in a strong way unless I can at least give my logic behind my argument. Doesn't mean I think I'm an expert on these topics or whatever, but I'm not afraid to support my argument. All right, Alyssa, good to see you. I see some other familiar names in here. The one and only Mert. Good to see you, Mert. Yeah, you're right. Mert, man, I'm telling you, I've been in Colorado for I've lived in Colorado for a total of 19 years, and I never knew what to expect. Like, I've been on motorcycle trips far away from where I live, and if you're going up a mountain pass, there could be a little microsystem. It could be a gorgeous day, it could be 90 degrees out, and you go up a mountain pass, and it's pouring rain or even snowing in the summer. It's crazy. Look, Mert, I'm from Jersey. I had to deal with all the humidity and the shitty winters. In fact, when I moved back to Jersey from Colorado in 2003, it was one of the coldest winters on record. And I mean, it was brutal. Like 2 weeks at a time of overcast, freezing weather. Whereas in Colorado, it's generally speaking, it's sunny a lot. They average a lot of sunshine. It was a rough adjustment, man, let me tell you. Yeah, so what I'm hoping we can do tonight is stimulate some conversations. The chat is always encouraged to throw some ideas out there, things we can talk about. Um, I'm into, whatever kind of open discussion people wanna get into, and it's a late night stream. That's the whole idea. Um, I've said this many times, Jessica. At first, I said, I would say repeatedly, I don't think we're gonna ever get the truth unless a whistleblower comes forward. But now I tend to think that even I don't trust a whistleblower at this point. When you have all these quote unquote experts that have come out in sequence, seemingly timed pretty strategically, and in my opinion, perhaps as a distraction, I don't really feel like we're ever gonna get the truth. If there's a background operation that was going on with Idaho 4 case that had national security implications. Look, think about this. cases like the Idaho 4, in my opinion, and the Charlie Kirk assassination, the Luigi Mangione case, and things like Nancy Guthrie and things like that, high profile cases, I don't have faith that the public ever gets the truth, because I just think about it, like the Kennedy assassination. That was 63 years ago, and we still don't really know what happened. 9/11, we still don't really know what happened. Chickadee, good to see you. Yeah, E-Potty, man, we can get into it. I'm down with hearing your theories about these different things. Now, the time thing, anybody that has studied or done a little bit of digging into quantum physics knows that time is relevant to quantum physics and quantum mechanics. And it's definitely a topic that it's something that it's a given, right? We've all there's certain things that humanity accepts as standard elements of human existence, and time is one of them. Ah, love and other habits. Good to see you. Right on. Yeah, E-Potty, we'll get you up tonight, man. We'll go to battle about aliens tonight, and we'll talk about time. By the way, I want to give a shout out to E-Potty and Karen Bell and others on Discord that have been volunteering their efforts to do research for the channel. And we have some good stuff coming up. So before we get into any particular topic, please like and subscribe to the channel and make sure that your notifications are turned on. No talkie before coffee. Do you think the last few public cases are pegged as an awakening? Meaning, do you mean that they're causing people to awaken? Because if that's what you mean, I think that that is correct. Because I think a percentage of the population has been awakening. I do believe that. And I've said this many, many times. You guys have probably heard me. When you have an awakening, and I've used the book, uh, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, because in the very beginning of that book, they talk about paradigm shifts. And they show you the picture, and do you see the old woman or the young woman? And once you see whatever, say you look at the picture and you see the old woman, if you look at it long enough, for most people, it'll shift and you'll see the sort of the representation of what looks like the young woman. Once you see that young woman or the old woman, you can't unsee it. You'll always see it. And I believe that once people have an awakening, you can't unsee it. So paradigm shifts, I've talked about it a lot, and tipping points. A tipping point is when there's a critical mass that gets to a point where it sort of creates this sort of awakening or a paradigm shift on a collective level. And I do believe that stuff is really powerful. That's why I believe in communities discussing things, putting it out to the universe, because I think, as I've talked about before, I believe in a collective consciousness. And I'm not even like a super woo-woo spiritual guy per se. I believe in the quantum physics elements of the universe, and I think that that energy field, people can tap into it. And if you put ideas out there, they spread. I really believe that. Yeah, I agree, Jessica, manifesting. But I think we just don't have the technology to study what is really happening when these types of things occur. And I believe that the power structure, which I've spoken about many times in many different videos, they know this. And if you read about secret societies and the ancient power structures and things like that, which we will be doing a series on in the future, the global power structure, they go back literally thousands of years. I believe that there's a segment of that realm that knows about energy, which is why they try to keep people divided, keep them fighting, keep them scared, keep them confused, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I even think it's almost more than positivity. It's like an awareness of the bigger picture, I think spreads. I feel this very strongly that awareness spreads. Yeah, right. I agree, Shawley. So many in this case need a Rorschach test. I bet there would be some incredibly interesting results, right? Because what? We seek to confirm our preconceived ideas. And I think that Shawley studied psychology. We project what we believe, what we feel, what we think about ourselves, what we think about the world, we project it onto the world. And I've Shawley, I hope you'll come up on stage tonight and we could maybe talk some psychology as it relates to the Idaho 4 case. So projection, right? That's a Freudian idea. It's a one of the defense mechanisms, right? Now, Freud is a very controversial figure. And Philly and I have discussed this. There's no question he was. In fact, his ideas were sort of rejected by modern psychology. However, I believe, and I wasn't my what they call in psychology in clinical psychology, your theoretical orientation was not necessarily psychodynamic because that's what like Freud, Carl Jung, there were a bunch of Freud acolytes that and sort of proteges, Carl Jung being the most well known, that rejected a lot of Freud's theories because they had a very negative basis and they were based on the drive theory. Shawley probably knows what I'm speaking about. Um, but the whole defense mechanisms thing, there is some brilliant ideas in some of Freud's theories. Like, really, I do believe that he was a wacky guy and maybe a troubled figure and a dark figure, but I think he was brilliant. Now, in the context of psychoanalysis and things like that, I don't adhere to that method of psychotherapy, but I think he was a brilliant guy. However, Carl Jung, on the other hand, for people who know anything about Carl Jung was very tapped into mythology and archetypes and things like that. And Carl Jung was very spiritual. And he was, I believe, a really brilliant person. And that his work was extremely advanced, his ideas and some of the things, the theories he came up with. Yeah. So anyway, Shawley and I could probably talk about some of that stuff. I was really into it when I was studying psychology and looking to potentially become a psychotherapist. And you have to learn about this stuff. You have to dissect a lot of different proponents of different psychological and psychotherapy methods and methodologies. So you have to learn about a lot of that stuff. Whether you like their theories or not, you still have to learn about them. And then you kind of zero in on what ideologies resonate with you. Yeah, well, that's what Philly and I have been speaking about. I actually saw the play Freud's Last Session twice with my psychotherapy class. In fact, it was made into a movie. Anthony Hopkins plays Freud. It was about a fictitious meeting that occurred between Freud and C.S. Lewis. And if you're into psychology and philosophy, it's a really good movie. But I saw it in New York City. I saw that play twice, Freud's Last Session. Very interesting. Yep, it's funny. Um, Love and Other Habits. That's interesting that you just put that up. What I understand is that it was never confirmed that they met, that it was like a, hypothesized meeting, what would happen if they met and spoke. Now, again, this is a long time ago, so there's probably different ideas about whether it really happened or not. But what I remember is that it was never confirmed that it actually happened. Like, it was a sort of framework of what would happen if C.S. Lewis, who was very religious, and Freud, who was an atheist, ever came together and had a philosophical discussion. All right, we got some UK peeps in the house. Oh, sorry, I pulled that off. Katie Mahoney, right on. Good to see you. Welcome. All right, let's see. Yeah, it's a good look. The movie's interesting. The play was really interesting, and it was very, I like philosophy as far as I like wrestling with ideas. I think it's good for you, even if you may not agree with what's being said. I think it's really good to stretch your brain with ideas. I really believe in that. All right. Shawley, if you want to come up soon and talk about some psychology and some Idaho 4 stuff, I've enjoyed listening to you on Birdie Bombshells, and I love your accent. So if you want to jump up, you're obviously always welcome. Same with E-Potty. I like when you guys come up and chit chat. All right, we got some homies in the house. Where'd that go? There it is. My mentors, Devil's Advocates. What's up? You guys wouldn't even know who I was if it weren't for the Devil's Advocates. And so and I say that all the time. And of course, DA is always welcome to come up on screen. DA and I went to Moscow last November. So the past November, we went to all those different spots around Idaho. We were all over the state pretty much. And we stayed at that, what is it, Quality Inn? We stayed there, but when we stayed there, we didn't have the excitement that we saw in that or heard in that interview. So, yeah, it was pretty chill when we were there. But yeah, the Idaho trip was fun. And it was a trip being in Moscow, going to WSU, going to Coeur d'Alene. It's being in these places that we've all seen a million times in videos and things like that was a trip. So yeah, that was an experience, man. No talkie before coffee. I grew up with teachers all around me and family, ironically, that are the biggest bullies I've ever met. Man, see, when I went back to finish my undergrad in psychology, I was a little bit older. And so professors treated me a little bit differently. Now, if you're speaking about college or just like grade school or high school or whatever, yeah, that's a whole different story. But yeah, it's Foxy. Not even Brian can get me there. DM, on the other hand, has my interest peaked. You can be sure none of them are around there anymore. Yeah, it's the whole Idaho. I mean, going to Idaho for I was there once before in the past, but just in Boise. But going there and going to the areas, going to Moscow, going to, Coeur d'Alene, going through um, WSU, like all the places, these like sort of, I guess you could say, landmark places within the case was a trip. Gulf Coast Bum, what's up? Good to see you. So, it was interesting. It's good to get boots on the ground and see an area, to see the King Road area, to see how close together everything was, which I can promise you guys, you never you have no idea how much different it is in person than in videos. You can't get the perspective of a place on camera. You can't because the perspective changes. And I think with most modern cameras, it's wider angle. And so it changes the way things really look from how they are in real life. Ipati, my folks hosted the New York chapter of the C.S. Lewis Society. Interesting. Gulf Coast Bum. I will be going to Idaho soon to see my first grandchild being born, but it's nowhere close to Moscow. There's a lot of open space in Idaho. I never realized, I mean, you could drive for hours, literally like 5, 6 hours through Idaho and maybe come across one town in the middle of nowhere. There's a lot of open space in Idaho. It's different than Colorado. Colorado is a much more populated state, especially now. Yeah, congrats. Wait, hold on. Gulf Coast Bum, congrats. Congrats. No talkie before coffee. We were gonna go to the corner club, but here's the thing. We kind of sort of agreed. We didn't, because remember, there was like major exhaustion in that town from all the content creators and media being there. We didn't want to draw too much attention to ourselves. I certainly didn't. So when we were there, we kind of kept it on the down low. We didn't want to be too conspicuous. We did some live streams from there, some members only streams that were pretty funny. And we didn't go to the corner club. We passed it a million times. I'll tell you what was one of the trippy things. the first time we drove down the main street in Moscow, the building where that surveillance camera was, where Kaylee, Maddie, and Jack S were walking past the camera. We drove past that a few times. And when you see things in videos and stuff and then you go there, it's different. It's an interesting experience. And going to the King Road area was really trippy. So yeah, I'm glad that I got to actually be there and see the area and understand it better. But generally speaking, we tried to, at least I didn't want to be too intrusive in the area because I wouldn't want people doing that stuff. If I something big like that happened in my area, I would get sick of all that stuff too. All the people coming there and filming and shit. I didn't want to do that. All right. So I think we need to get somebody up on stage, stir some shit. So, Shawley, whenever you're ready, we can, if you're interested, you can come up, or E-Potty, whoever's, all right, Shawley's up. What's up, Shawley? How are you?
Hi, JJ. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. I've looked forward to this for a very long time. I apologize about last night. I had a migraine on its way, and I thought it's probably best I don't.
No, that's cool, man. It's, like I said, I've listened to you on Birdie Bombshells many times, and I, it's interesting because I like people. You seem, to correct me if I'm wrong, you seem to be very analytical.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I like that. I like people that are analytical because I'm like that. That's just how my brain works. And it's almost, it's kind of like it reinforces the idea that you're not crazy for being analytical when you see other people and hear other people that are analytical.
Yeah, definitely. I have my theories, obviously, but they always come back to the facts. And like someone was saying earlier about truth seekers, that's what I call my channel members, my channel subscribers. I call them my truth seekers because that's what we're here for.
Right. Right. Of course. And let's be honest, we can all admit it's part of being human to want to figure stuff out.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. It's especially like if you're a curious person, you want to understand stuff. And so let me ask you this. In total, because we've come a long way from the beginning of the case, right? The narratives, all the things that have been shoved down the public's throat, then all document drops and videos, surveillance videos and body cam videos and all these different things we've seen. From where you are right now, based on everything you've seen, you don't have to be specific. I'm just trying to get a general idea. What is your gut feeling, and obviously combined with all the information you've seen, even if you want to give a more broad idea of what do you think is really going on with this case?
So I think with the Penn State situation currently, it's sort of solidified it even more in my mind. I've said that drugs were involved for a really long time. And the timing is very interesting to me. I've said for a long time that I don't believe that Brian was involved in the killings, but I do believe, as you do, I know that he is an operative. I've believed that for a very long time. I believe that there is involvement there, and as I say, the timing is very, very odd. He does his plea, and then all of a sudden, these arrests start happening, as though he was there as a stand-in until this happened. Now that these arrests have begun, and mark my words, from everything I've seen, I believe there's going to be a lot more arrests around that specific operation, should we say?
Right.
And I think he's got to the point now where it's like, right, okay, I've done what I was here to do now. You guys have started arresting the people that you wanted to begin with. Now I can change my plea and go forward from there. But there's a lot of things that tie in with the drug side of things as well. I said it on Birdie's channel on Friday. There was a pill press found in 1122. And as we know, Ethan had, been in a fraternity, and then he was no longer in that fraternity. And I do wonder, because he was no longer a freshman, and we know that the freshmen were involved in the manufacturing in the Penn State side of things, maybe, he had stopped stopped manufacturing, or had decided he didn't want to manufacture anymore, and they weren't happy with that, or had started manufacturing his own product and they didn't want that. And obviously this is just, a random theory that I'm throwing out there. I'm not saying that he was definitely involved in that kind of thing, but it's always stood out to me. You've got a fraternity where they're getting freshmen to manufacture product for them to distribute, and then you've got, there are some players in the U of I who I 100% believe were involved in the same sort of operation, and Ethan was very close with some of those people, so it is plausible that he was involved in the same sort of way.
Right. And at the very least, potentially peripherally involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if there was only a connection, that would be pretty significant as well, right? Because if somebody who knew a lot of things about bigger picture things that were happening in that area, if there was some threat of them because of maybe a fight that happened or something else, a threat of exposing something, they would be somebody that you wouldn't want to have the capacity to undo or cause a problem for a bigger operation, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I believe that there are two ways in which Ethan is the center of this. I believe in the drug side of things, and the love triangle has been insinuated multiple times, and there are things that I've picked up on the audio that sound as though there was a fight or an argument in the street, early hours of that morning. And it seems to me, when you look at Xana's text message records, for example, so you can hear the audio, and in the audio you hear, whoa, Ethan, and then there's a lot of noise and stuff, and then a couple of minutes later you hear what sounds like Dylan shouting, Xana, Xana, and it's getting further away. Now, to me, that seems as though Ethan was in a fight or an argument with somebody. He got hurt. Xana was like, I can't handle this. She walked off in the opposite direction, and Dylan chased after her, calling her name. At the same time that you hear that audio, or a few seconds later, she then texts Pete, are you good? And it just seems to me very odd, the timing of all of that. Some of the injuries that Ethan has don't make sense for where he was potentially found, and we don't actually know that anything in this case actually happened. We don't know any of it.
Right.
Everyone's saying, oh, we've got all of this, the facts are in the evidence. We don't know that evidence. We don't know. Accomplished Day mentioned, obviously I'm not saying she's not telling the truth, but whether it's true or not from the other side of things, there's apparently a whole server that we don't know, we've never seen, that has over 50 terabytes of data in it. When you look at the things that have been FOIA'd, it's less than a terabyte of information that we've actually seen. And we don't know that that's actual evidence. We don't know that that hasn't been tampered with. I've personally found, it's on, some of it's on my channel, I've personally found certain things that have clearly been tampered with. There's proof of it. And I've put it out there, and I'm going to continue to put it out there when I find these things. So yeah, I thought so, Cara, as well. So I just seen it's just Cara mentioned that she's always thought it was DM shouting Xana's name in that audio. It does sound like her. And as I say, it wouldn't be as big a thing if it wasn't for the timing of that message to Pete.
Right.
And
then you have to question whether or not the information that regarding the text you're being cheated on, the two texts, right? How relevant is that? Is it even real?
Exactly.
I just want to rewind for a second because going way back before Brian Kohberger was even introduced to the public in this case, I believed, because it started for me with, was this a serial killer? What was the 8-hour delay about? That kind of thing initially, because I studied, we've in the chat, we've gone back and forth about this. Like, I studied forensic psychology and I studied conflict and violence. And on my own, I read a lot of books about profiling.
Yes,
it's going way back. So I was framing it through that lens initially. And then I said, wait a minute. And I got a lot of shit for this, by the way. These are college kids. I lived in a lot of party houses when I was young. I was probably 4 or 5 times I was in the party house when I was young.
Yeah, same.
And you know what goes on. Anybody who's lived in that environment knows. And I was getting shit for saying drugs were involved. I wasn't saying these kids are hardcore drug addicts, but most party houses, in my experience, this is just my experience, either have drugs flowing through there or a drug dealer associated with that house. Because think about it, in a given environment, a party house would be a great place if you were a drug dealer or somebody that was moving drugs, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, even if it was just, there was a lot of that going on because it was a party house. So early on, I said, like very early on, I'm telling you, there was somehow drugs were involved in this case. Obviously, I don't know how at this point because it was very early.
Yeah.
But I was very sure of that. And then you bring up the idea of an operation. Well, look how much information we have seen that has come out confirming operations in that area before, during, and probably afterwards. I mean, that's not a stretch. We know there were agencies involved.
Definitely. Even that night. Even that night, they were doing busts in the local area.
Exactly. And so the idea, and it blows my mind why it's so hard for some people to look at a situation and take information that's right in front of their faces and extrapolate from that. If you have agencies involved in something, now you mentioned all that data, right? The whatever, how many terabytes did you say it was?
It's over 50 terabytes that were apparently in this other server that we don't know anything about.
Right. So here's what my mind goes to, because you know what my theory is. You guys have heard me talk about it ad nauseum. If you have stuff going on in the background, it's related to a federal agency, trafficking, anything like that, that is going to be blanketed under national security.
Yep.
It's not hard for them to do that. And so, all right, we have all this information. Birdie just talked about this stuff when he did his 4-part series. When you have operations happening, they can just, the higher up agencies, the feds, and even higher than the feds, right? We could talk about the CIA and all those things. Once stuff is going over the border, or if a group, we talked about this with Big Amish last night, If a group is designated as a terrorist organization, like was done with the cartels, that right there, now you have other agencies that can be involved because it's now an international concern, right? And so I just want to get your take on this, right? Because I think you and I are largely on the same page about certain things, that there is a
Definitely.
bigger picture happening. Christopher Whitcomb, which I've talked about a lot, he has admitted openly, his words, that he worked for the CIA.
Yeah.
His words in an interview that I saw, Bertie sent me this interview, where he says, when I was working overseas for the intelligence agencies, and he said, and I quote, and I had a journalism cover. Now, for anybody who hasn't heard me talk about this, and I apologize if you have, there is such a thing as called a non-official cover.
Yep.
So when a CIA agent is involved in operations overseas, there is a branch of that. It's called a NOC, non-official cover. They give you a cover. So you could be in the media, you could be an art dealer, you could be a professor at a university, whatever it is, they give you that cover. Why, think about this, guys. Why would a former CIA operative, plain and simple, be writing a book about the Idaho 4 case?
Quite.
To me, like, and I was on the stream with Christopher Whitcomb on Devil's Advocates.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, and I wasn't going to push because it's not my place. DA was interviewing him, and I asked him a few questions, and he immediately steered away from my
deflected.
questions.
I noticed, yeah.
And so as soon as I saw that, I'm like, look, I mean, whatever the guy's got going on, I don't know, but I'm just going to observe and pay attention. And I did that with each subsequent interview he did. So let me ask you this, Shawley. I know I'm going a little bit, I'm straying a little bit away.
No, I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Yeah. In your opinion, because as we both said, we agree that it was an operation involved. I've never been so sure about anything that there was, and that Koberger was a part of it.
Yeah.
What do you think Whitcomb, Turvey, and Holland, and of course Cyree, what do you if you believe this in any way, shape, or form, do you think they played a role in the operation? And if so, what do you think, any of them or all of them, what do you think their role was?
I'll break it down a bit more granular. So first of all, and again, this is my own theory, but just based on the kind of teachings I've had, or the kind of learnings I've had, I'm very good with body language. I'm very good with, recognizing patterns in speech and things like that. And I also picked up on something very interesting that Cyree said the other day. I've said from day one, I don't think Whitcomb wrote that book. I've said that from day one. From day one, I've said, I think it was Turvey that wrote the book. And I think that Chris Whitcomb put it out there. He mentioned several times that Turvey was very involved in the information in that book. And Cyree said on an interview I saw the other day, he was talking to Custody Queens, he slipped up. Was it Custody Queens? It might not have been Custody Queens. My apologies. I'll have to look into that. But he said on an interview the other day anyway, and I brought it up to Birdie. He was talking about Turvey, and he said, well, he wrote a book. And it was just like, excuse me? And I picked up on it that second. And I've said from day one, the way that Turvey moves, the way that Turvey speaks, everything about him, he's an extremely intelligent man. And I think Cyree is, to be honest. I think he is. you know, a lot of people say, oh, he's an idiot because, you know, he says one thing and he said, I think it's all constructed. I think he says different things on purpose. The same way that I think Chris Whitcomb says certain things. He'll say things that sound like he's letting you into a secret, but he's not actually giving you very much information. And if you actually look into what he's saying, there's something there. Do I believe Whitcomb was part of the operation itself? Potentially. If not, I believe that he has knowledge of the operation. Turvey, I'm not sure if he actually was involved in the operation itself. Cyray, 100%. 100%. I've been looking into Cyray a lot, and I'm sure you probably know about this as well if you've been looking into him. But the things that he's done in the background, he's had several times when he has been brought up because he has coerced people that he's been representing in the past into doing things that they shouldn't be doing, saying things that they shouldn't be saying, taking pleas that they shouldn't be taking. It's all out there. It's public record. He has got a very dark past. And yeah, I 100% believe that he was involved in the operation. And I think, although he was brought in on the defense side, I don't think he was there for the defense at all. How do you have such a long career of always being on the prosecution side and then all of a sudden you're on the defense side? For this one case, his one and only defense case. So, I mean, but Whitcomb, with his expertise in the past, I've got a lot of respect for his background. I do have a lot of respect for the work that he's done. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of three-letter agencies, and although I'm not in America, my brothers, my father, and my nieces do live in Montana, so I do have that inside track of knowing how things happen over there. And we have very similar political issues ourselves, over here. But I do have a lot of respect for the life that he made for himself, and the expertise that he has. And the fact that something like this could happen and he could be closely involved with it, speaking to Turvey, and not, at the very least, have knowledge of the operation, it just doesn't seem factually possible to me, personally.
Right. Well, I'll tell you my take about the quote unquote experts and the people that have seemingly come out in a strategic manner. One of the things that I spent a lot of time learning about was intelligence agencies. And what happens is your average person, right? You're just your regular everyday person who may not have the time or has no interest in it, looking into these things, doesn't know the capacity that intelligence agencies have. I've looked into their origins. I've looked into a lot of operations, declassified information, and so on. You don't, somebody that's all right. And let me back up. I've said it many times, like Chris Whitcomb has got an impressive resume. If you're looking at just within the realm of the things that he has done, whether you agree with it or not, that's not the point.
No.
He's obviously a very skilled and intelligent man. You do not get to that level unless you are. You just don't. These high-level intelligence officers, man, you got to be sharp.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with things that regular people will never have to deal with in their lives. And you're doing it in oftentimes hostile environments.
Yeah.
And oftentimes in other countries. So I've said that before. If his job, if there was an operation, which I believe there was, and they needed to shift public narratives and, whatever, even if it's just a limited hangout situation where they're releasing information to satiate the public, or, as I've said many times on Birdie Bombshells, oftentimes operations are set up to accomplish more than one thing.
Yep.
And distraction is one of the things that psyops accomplish.
Yep.
It's not. See, humans are we're wired a certain way, right? You see information and you try to figure it out in one realm, in one sort of section of a big piece. You look at that's just the way our brains work, right? We look at things and it's related to this case. So we look at it from that perspective. But oftentimes what intelligence agencies do is multifaceted. So distraction is something they do.
Yep.
Right? Because there's like a colloquial term, flooding the zone.
Yep.
Where all this information comes out about a certain thing, whether it's politics or a case or whatever it is, a war, information that's related to a controversial thing. And if you have a whole segment of the true crime community that's questioning the official narrative, and that case was connected to an operation, wouldn't it be logical that they would send people in to try to shift that narrative?
Yep.
Right? I mean, nobody does psychology better than the CIA.
Agreed.
Period. They have some of the best psychologists in the world. Most people don't know that. They have a whole psychological operations department. And so I agree with you. I think that there was a pre-existing operation in place. I'll reiterate what my theory is. I think Kohlberger was working with funding related stuff in that area, federal funding. And I think that they needed to get, back to business as usual in that area, get the kids back to school, continue to have parents considering sending their kids to that school because universities are big money.
Yeah.
Because they're connected to the banking industry. And I think they had a guy, this is my theory, it's just my theory. They had a guy who we don't know anything about him other than what we've been told. For all we know, he could have been brought there by one of the agencies.
A guy who has very limited online presence as well.
Right, which is Ray comes to mind when I think about that as well. So I looked in his background. And so you have this guy that's presented to the public. And again, I apologize, I'm repeating myself, but those stops in the car, the white Elantra, he doesn't get a ticket. Hey, here's the guy. Here's the white Elantra. Look at this guy. Here he is. Oh, look at him in prison. I don't buy that. I think that was part of a grooming operation to get the public to accept him as the perp. And so what happens? You get bigger operations happening in the background or in parallel to the public facing case. And I give credit to Birdie for addressing this. If the public's not buying the official story and there's people that have a following that are questioning it, well, wouldn't you want to send people in to try to muddy the waters? I would say yes. Right. I would say that you would want to do that. And if it was a big enough operation, then you would utilize the resources to do that. Hence all the redactions, hence all the difficulty in getting the official story. Like we've heard so many versions of the official story at this point. There's no way, in my opinion, that all of that could be by accident.
No, I mean, Whitcomb said it himself in interviews, read between the lines, go and find the information for yourself. He said those things. And I said to Birdie then, I think he's saying that to try and, confuse, like, for example, he was asked on Birdie's stream when he was doing his interview, oh, do you think that there was a love triangle? And somebody said a specific pairing, and he said, oh, not them, but, a different pairing. And little things that he says, it's like he's trying to get you to go and look in that direction. And I don't think that the directions that he's trying to get you to look in are the right ones. So it feeds into what you just said, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, you remember he did his first interview and his second and his third interview. And what was he saying? Oh, this is what you really need to look at.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you guys need to dig into.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wouldn't that be an effective way to get people to steer away from a certain timeline and certain events that may have been happening at one time versus the official time, the 4 a.m. timeline? And I've said many times that all these people connected to in the periphery of the case, like DM and BF, I believe they were handed a narrative that they contacted somebody way before the 911 call that came to the house. And I have to give credit to Kristen from the Custody Queens and Ron for this. When I was on there the second time, I think, Kristen pointed out there's something weird about that house.
Definitely.
And a light went off in my head. I said, yes, you're right. So I believe that house was a central part of whatever pre-existing operations were going on. And so if that was the case, then that house would have contact people. And so I believe they were, in my opinion, they were given the narrative to push. And that's why, yes, they are lying to the public, the people, DM and BF or whatever. I agree with that. However, it's possible that they were doing what they were told.
Yeah.
They were just pawns.
Like right. Yeah, I feel like that's right. I think that Dylan knowingly lied. But I think that, as you say, I think that she was made to. I mean, I don't think she's a very nice person, but there we are. Everybody in here knows what I think of her. But I think Bethany was just swept up in it. I think that, she was told this is how things need to happen. I don't know 100%, but my view is that there's no real malice there. It's just, I think she's scared. I think she's really scared. And going back to Whitcomb briefly, recently he went back to do another interview with Lana, and going back to the body language and everything, the way he reacted when she mentioned that some people thought that he was part of some operation regarding Idaho 4, the way that he reacted was very like, oh God, and his facial expression said everything I needed to know. If you haven't seen it, I urge you to go watch it. It's the way that his face goes when she mentions that is very, very telling.
Which video? Which
the most recent, it's Truth and Transparency on Lana's channel, and he went back to do a second interview with her, and right off the bat at the start of the interview, he says that he doesn't want to talk about anything that's not in the book, because he doesn't want to, because it's an active investigation again, because Brian's changed his plea, which is fair enough. That's, fine.
Yeah, I commented on that as well. I saw that. Man, it's fascinating because I look at it in a different way, like than people who are just following a true crime case. I'm like, what are, like, I look, like you said, I look at body language. I look at what are people steering away from and steering towards, because oftentimes I think that is telling if you pay attention. And so to me, watching somebody, look, you can't deny it. Whitcomb is very good at being strategic.
Definitely.
And you don't get to that level that he has been at unless you are very good at being strategic. And so I think there's a lot of things. Right. Lucy Morningstar, I agree. How did he all of a sudden come into the picture and have access to all this information?
Well, there was a gag order in place as well.
Right. And so what my mind goes to is there is an operation involved. I've been saying it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say that, and I still believe that, is because you don't have this level of coordination all the way up to the mainstream media, to the president talking about the case.
Mm-hmm.
If it's just a local case and it's corruption and some poor guy was framed, I don't buy that. I don't think that's the way things work. To have that level of coordination, it requires resources and
Absolutely.
something at a higher level.
I mean, there's a lot of CIA operatives. They weren't all invited to Ruby Ridge, for example. You know, I'm just putting that out there. You know, some of the high profile cases, if you were, that Whitcomb was involved in, it's, you know, that is a very high level. There are lots of little things that happen that the CIA gets involved in, but things like Ruby Ridge and things that are so, you know, Waco, you know, these massive, massive things, and Whitcomb was right at the center of them all. And there is a lot of, I think people underestimate him big time. I really, really do. Big time underestimate him. You know,
I agree. I totally agree with you because I don't underestimate someone who's been to the levels of intelligence and operations that he has.
mm-mm,
And you know, like by all accounts, if this was another scenario, I share a passion with this guy. I've been a musician for decades and he's a musician and you know, so in everyday life, I probably have a lot to talk about with him. However, if his job was to come in and push a narrative or whatever his role is, that's his job. And so I can
mm-hmm,
separate things. Now, I'm very critical of power structure and the way they lie to the public and they basically blanket it under national security or what, oh, it's the greater good or whatever. You peasants don't need to know about this. I disagree with
mm-hmm,
that. So I can look at things in that way, you know, I can separate them. So when I speak about Chris Whitcomb, it's not, I get it. I understand the big picture.
mm-hmm.
He might have been tasked. That's his job. And you know, I've said it before. I don't believe there's such a thing as a former CIA agent.
No,
When you
you're never
join
out.
the agency, you're in it for life.
Absolutely. And I mean, even obviously pivoting slightly, but the fact that this case was mentioned in the Epstein files. I know YouTube hates his name, but you can't ignore that. Why would it be? You know, why would this case be mentioned in those files? You know, that obviously there's a lot more to this, and people that ignore that, you know, I'm here for everybody. Everyone's a human. I don't, you know, I don't go against anybody. You know, we're all human beings and we all are entitled to our own opinions, but the ignorance is astounding to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely astounding.
Well, surely that's why I'm here. Is this why I started this channel?
Mm,
Because when you see things that you can't unsee, I believe the only way to get more people to wake up to what's happening in the world, much broader than the Idaho 4 case, is to speak about things. And most of my videos have nothing to do with the Idaho 4 case.
yeah.
You know, I talk about the bigger picture things, what's really happening in the world. What are the bigger converging interests that are shaping our world right now? Certainly in the last 6 years, but going much further back than that. And so the Idaho 4 case is just a microcosm of that.
Hmm.
And, you know, I've talked about it with Birdie many times, and we've kind of gotten into it a little bit on his channel. But it's very difficult to encapsulate such a big picture thing when you're talking about one case.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
I think it's very relevant in the Tyler Robinson case,
Mm-hmm.
and Big Amish and I are going to dig into that next Saturday, because I was following the Charlie Kirk assassination right from minutes after it happened. And I see a lot of similarities in that. I also see similarities with the Luigi Mangione case.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, with the Nancy Guthrie case.
Yeah.
I see patterns. And I think,
Yeah.
based on what I've heard you speak about and what you've spoken about tonight, you are the same way.
Definitely.
And I kind of think, in a strange way, I think people, I always say everything regresses to psychology, right? Because
100%.
everything that happened, and sociology, but everything that happens, whether it's corruption, whether it's everything, politics, it's humans, it's
Mm-hmm.
human psychology. And I'll just say this, it's a little callback, something I've talked about in the past, or a long time ago at least. Like 25 years ago, you remember, like, Google had
Yeah.
blogspot.com. I started because I've always been into, like, writing and things like that, and been interested in journalism. I wrote a piece on Blogspot like 25 years ago,
Oh, wow.
talking
Okay.
about how people compromise. And I used politicians and CEOs as an example. Based on psychological principles, once a person compromises, it's all behavioral psych. The next time, when they're presented with a scenario where they would need to compromise, it's easier to compromise because
Yeah.
you've already set the stage. Your psyche, or your, however you
Mhm.
want to frame it.
There's a precedence.
Right. There's a precedent. And what we do as humans is we get desensitized, we have rationalizations. It's easier to justify things that might be shady
Mm-hmm.
once you've done it. And each subsequent time that someone compromises, the compromises get bigger. And
Absolutely.
so I believe that part of what we see with these bigger picture things, and it does relate to the Idaho 4 case, is you have people that justify lying to the public. Oh, I'm really doing the thing for the greater good.
You couldn't handle the truth, you know?
Yeah, you peasants couldn't handle the truth, and we're the ones, we're doing the good things. So,
Yeah.
if we have to crack a few eggs to make an omelet, that whole argument.
Yeah. We've had that recently in the UK. I don't know if you're aware of what's been going on, but one of our former political people was murdered in her home. Very, very shortly before she was supposed to be going on a very important video call regarding politics in the UK. And they came out and told us it wasn't terrorism. They said, oh, we're not classing it as a terrorism. It was just a B&E. And it was like, how stupid do you think we are? Like, really, how stupid do you think we are? I didn't agree with her views, but that didn't mean that she was any less of a human being. And the way that they even weeks later, they came out and said, oh, we're not going to release any more information, things like that. And it's like, why? And it was like, oh, well, there's a lot of, it's very intricate, you wouldn't understand, kind of thing. And it's
Right.
like, right, okay.
Yeah, well, that's it's kind of my whole thing. Is like, I look at the big picture, and I've said it before in videos, like every video I've done, and this includes the Idaho 4 videos I've done, there's a common thread that runs through them all. I'm not going to spell it out for everybody, what that common thread is, because people have to come to that on their own.
Yeah.
there's much bigger things at play in the world right now more than ever. And we can point to things like the surveillance state being pushed and uh, censorship and the violation of people's constitutional rights here in America.
Mhm.
It's, the First Amendment, Second Amendment, and so on, the Fourth Amendment. And so it's all connected. And I say, don't look at a high profile case only for what happened and the case itself. Look at what happens as a result of the case. Because
Absolutely.
oftentimes, right, we see down the road, we've already seen in Idaho bills being passed to limit what access people have to crime scene photos, right? Well, that's a violation of the First Amendment.
Absolutely.
It,
Absolutely. And I know you were talking about flock cameras with Birdie the other day, and, you know, they're everywhere in the UK. I don't know if you know that, but absolutely everywhere. They are. You can't walk a couple of steps without seeing one in the UK. I noticed a couple of towns away from myself, there's a flock camera in the toilet, not in the cubicle, but actually, the part where you wash your hands afterwards. There's a camera. There's a flock camera in there, and it's completely normal to us. And obviously, it's not to me, but I still don't agree with it. But people are just so desensitized to it here. People have just closed their eyes to the fact that they're everywhere. So when I hear you know Americans talking about flock cameras and everything, I'm just like, yes, exactly, yes, because it is a
yeah,
massive, massive epidemic here that
right.
no one talks about.
And I swear, I'm not exaggerating. If I had a better arm than I have, from where I'm sitting right now, I could throw a football and hit a flock camera.
Hmm.
There's one right here. It's right there. It's not even a block away from where I am right now.
Yeah, and you're fairly out in the sticks in comparison to most places, aren't you? So,
Yeah, well, I'm in like a resort area, so
oh, okay,
it's in the mountains, but it's a pretty busy little spot where I am.
okay,
But it's a big thing around here, and a lot of
hmm,
people have been pushing back, which is great,
good,
you know.
yeah,
But like, here's the craziest part: where I am, relatively speaking, is a very low crime area. It doesn't mean there's no crime. There's crime everywhere.
hmm.
There's bears here, but
I'll talk to you
there's
about
been
that
a
in a
lot
minute.
of bear encounters lately around here. But I asked a question like about a year and a half ago. The town that I live in posted a thing on online. It was like, "Oh, we want to get public feedback about uh, traffic cameras." They never got into details, and this is before all the hoopla about flock cameras. And I responded and I said, "Is the crime really that bad here that you
Yeah,
need surveillance cameras?"
you need more flock cameras.
Right. So my argument is, okay, people should start pushing back and saying, "Wow, if the crime is that bad here, maybe I should move."
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
what do you need those surveillance cameras here for?
Hmm.
It's preposterous. And it's, in my opinion, all these organizations, I'll just say, they're getting paid to do this.
Hmm.
They get money on the back. Look, can I prove it? No, I don't work in forensic accounting. But like something that started in spring of 2020, a lot of these organizations were getting money for, and Philly can talk about this, for a percentage of people that got a certain medical treatment.
Yep.
Organizations were getting paid based on how many people
Yep.
got
I
that
know what you're
medical
talking
treatment.
about. I know exactly
Right.
what you're talking about.
Of course.
Obviously, we can't say the word, but yeah.
Right. So it all ties in. And this is why, for anybody who's sick of hearing me talk about this stuff, you have to zoom out and connect the dots, because everything is connected when powerful institutions are involved. And
Absolutely.
if I can just get some people to say, "Oh, I see why he doesn't shut up about this stuff," I'll be happy because it was done to me. Things opened my eyes and
Mhm.
made me start digging on my own and reading and learning and connecting dots. And this is why I can't relate to people who just look at things from this angle, this like
Eyes
closed
wide shut.
in. Yeah, I can't relate to that.
No.
And it's very refreshing to see people that get it, that see the big picture. And I'm thankful that we have people who engage in the chat,
Mhm.
which I apologize, guys. I can barely read the chat as it is, but I've been neglectful of the chat because Charlie and I were getting into some deeper things.
I apologize. I've been monopolizing you.
No,
I
but
wanted
I mean,
to.
it's great. I love it. I'm sincerely very thankful that people will come up and have these discussions because there's more to it. Like,
Mhm.
you probably know 10 times more about the Idaho 4 case than I do, because after a certain point, I was only looking at the big picture stuff,
Yeah.
so it's really good. And in fact, I see people posting stuff in the chat that are bringing up, like, did you see this video? Or someone posted a translucence video with the G family and so on. I
Yeah.
did, by the way, see that video. Philly and I just talked about it today. Chickadee, what's up? Good to see you. Yeah, it's solar farms. There's so
Oh
many
gosh.
things that are interconnected. Here's what I'm going to do. I like to recommend stuff. Somebody might be able to refresh my memory. There is a documentary. I think it's on Hulu. Not positive, but I think it is. And it's all about how big oligarchs and corporations are buying up land in other countries. We all know about that, right? But here's the thing that the media won't talk about. What they do is they buy up these properties like in the Midwest and these more remote areas. And because of legislation in those areas, they have water rights.
Mhm.
So what they do is they come in and they have these big factory farms or solar farms or whatever these corporate, and these are investment banks buying this stuff.
Mhm.
And then they now are tapped into the local water source that regular people, regular farmers need. And they're
Mhm.
able to pump like exponentially more amounts of water. So they're basically taking control of the water supply. I recommend, God, Philly might know what the name of that documentary is, but I
I've
recommend
written it
people
down
watch it.
to find out about that because that sounds very interesting.
I
I'm
apologize that I can't remember the name of it.
No, that's fine. I'll do some research and try and find out what it's called. I'm very much a forest, not trees person
Yeah,
myself,
right. Yeah, you
you
and I
know.
both.
And I don't know if you saw what I put in the Discord, just going back to the bears thing quickly. You have bears everywhere. I put a picture in the Discord earlier. We have well, not panthers, they're black jaguars, but everyone calls them panthers. We have panthers.
You have
It's mad.
panthers?
Yeah, they're just roaming around. It happens every couple of years. We just get a load of panthers just randomly in people's gardens and stuff when it's hot here. The
Wow. Are
same
they
kind of
what
thing.
do they look? What color are they?
They're black, so as I say, they're not
Black
actually
panthers.
panthers. They're black jaguars. But yeah, I
That's
put a picture
crazy.
in the Discord earlier, and I know that Philly saw it. Yeah, she's just saying it's in the Discord under documentary. But yeah, they're
Whoa.
crazy. They really are.
How
They're
big
big.
are they?
They are big. I remember I was living about 10 years ago. I was living in a very small village, and I went to put my washing out, and I saw one. At first, I wasn't sure what I was seeing because it was the first time I'd ever seen one in real life, and it was longer than my garden bench, quite considerably longer than my garden bench. And I was like, I'm not going to go outside. Actually, I'm just going to go
Yeah, I
back
mean,
in.
cats are, predators.
Yeah.
And see, we have mountain lions here, but mountain lions are way more stealth,
Mhm.
so they don't typically, occasionally, like it's happened, you'll see some big ass mountain lions. People will take pictures of them and post them online. Like right down the street from where I am, somebody posted a picture of a huge mountain lion walking right past their living room window.
Wow.
They can like get to your pets and things like that,
Yeah.
or like that. But you don't see mountain lions like you see bears
Mhm.
and moose. I saw a moose the other day running down the
Oh, they're
street.
massive. I've never actually seen one in real life, but I've seen pictures online, and they are huge.
Yeah, there's a bunch of moose here, and I've had many. I've got some crazy. I'll try to find the picture, man. I have a crazy picture of a moose. It's literally standing on the top of a parking structure. It looks like a statue. There's a big ass moose. It looks so out of context, but I have
They
that
are
picture
huge.
somewhere.
They really are. And just to answer you, Pop and Switch, we don't get attacks very often. No, it's more livestock and animals going missing. But yeah, they just wander into the residential areas, um, and they are really quite large and they are fast. You see them in the back garden. You'll see them. They're just looking for food at this time of year. It's crazy.
Yeah, and what happens out west, what happens a lot is when you have a drought. So
Hmm.
we had a drought the first half of the summer, and what happens is all their food sources dry up in the higher elevations.
Yeah,
And that's typically over the years that I've lived out here, drought summers create a lot of bear activity in populated areas. And so I saw another huge bear the other day. Well, I was driving home and I happened to be talking to Philly on the phone.
yeah. I saw the pictures.
And I turned the corner literally 100 feet from my garage, and there's a big old bear just standing right in front of the dumpster. And
Mm.
I got so excited because I was like, I've seen the bears a million times, but I was just like, and I couldn't, when you're on the phone on my iPhone, you can't use the video. It
No.
it disables the video. And so I was like trying to take a video of it, but I just snapped a few pictures. It was a
I
pretty
love
big
bears.
bear.
Yeah, I love bears. I don't know if I'd want them in my back garden, but I do love bears. Like my dad, as I said before, lives in Montana, and he gets bears all the time. He'll. I remember once I was on the phone to him, and he was like, "Oh, 1 minute, I've got to go and scare this bear away," because he opened his kitchen curtains, and it was just there. It was
Right.
just.
And they have grizzlies in Montana.
Mhm.
Grizzlies are 5 times the size of a black
Yeah.
bear. Like,
Yeah.
the thing that's crazy is New Jersey has a lot of black bears, but they look different. I was talking about it last night. The black bears on the Northeast have like a long face, a long
Mhm.
head. The black bears here have a big fat head,
Yeah.
and they're bigger. They're bigger than the black bears by a lot. And I've lived in Colorado for 19 years. Like I've seen hundreds of bears like up close.
Yeah.
And they're looking for food.
Yeah.
And you just got to know you got to especially if they're about to go into hibernation and it's a dry summer, you don't want to get close to them,
Yeah. Give
because
them their space.
that's when they're
Yeah.
dangerous. But there's tons of them right now. They're everywhere. They're coming into town a lot. It's been in
Yeah.
the paper every day. Like they're just walking around town because they're looking for food.
Yeah, we get that with the black jaguars at this time of year as well. They're always around, but you don't see them apart from this time of year. And then, as I say, that picture I put on Discord, just outside someone's house. They're just,
Yeah.
it's mad.
Well, the thing about real quick, and we can wrap up the wildlife discussion, but um, predator cats are the ones that are extremely dangerous because
Yep.
if they rely on you not seeing them
Hmm.
and they come from behind. So, I don't hike per se, but I mountain bike. When you're
Yeah.
out on a trail up in a mountain area, you got to be really aware because there could be and there's a lot of them out here. There could be a mountain lion following you. If you're
Yeah, and you wouldn't
alone, they will stalk you. And the
know.
difference between a bear and a mountain lion is a mountain lion will track you and follow you.
Mm-hmm.
A bear won't. A bear
No.
typically only attacks somebody if you scare them, it's a mother with her cubs, or you stumble upon them and they feel threatened. They're
Yeah,
not going to
get too
track
close.
you. Yeah, they're not going to track you like a mountain lion does.
No,
So
they're
anyway,
they're terrifying.
I didn't
They're
mean to go
beautiful.
off the rails with
Yeah,
the
sorry,
whole
everybody.
wildlife discussion. But look, if anybody else also wants to come up on stage, please,
Yeah, I think there are a couple of other people waiting. So, I mean, I could literally talk to you for this entire stream, but I think it's probably fair that I let somebody else have a go now.
Well, look, it's a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah, you
I've
too.
listened to you on Birdie many times, and I'm sure you and I could get into some crazy discussions about things as well. So please come
Absolutely.
back,
I will do.
yeah,
I
please,
promise.
participate, because I like to be able to throw ideas around with people.
Yeah,
And
my
so,
husband's very interested in talking to you as well. He's asleep at the moment, but he's very interested in speaking to you at some point as well.
please, yeah, absolutely, you're both welcome. And next weekend, I have the Custody Queens on Friday afternoon, and then if I can, I'm going to do a live that night as well. And
Oh, that'd be
so,
good.
yeah, I just have to see what my schedule shapes out to be.
Yeah, don't burn the candle at both ends and exhaust yourself. It is, it is exhausting, and people don't understand. It can be.
Yeah, no, but it's cool. Like I don't know if I have any gigs next Friday, but if I don't, I'm open to doing another live. But please, everybody, check out the Custody Queens. I will be interviewing them. That is
I'm
the
very
goal,
excited for that. Very, very
right?
excited for that.
I'm not going to go off, and my whole plan is that I'm going to interview them based on everything they've seen thus far, all the interviews they've done. And it's going to be 4:30. It's going to be a live 4:30 Eastern time. So hopefully people will tune in. And then of the following night, I have Big Amish Media for another late night stream. And we're
Yeah,
going to go into the Idaho 4 and the Charlie Kirk assassination case, and we're going to talk about the parallels between that. You'd probably dig that, Charlie.
definitely. I'm very interested in that case. In the best possible way, obviously.
Yeah, well, we'll talk more about it. And again, thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and I hope we'll get to talk much more in the future.
Absolutely. I'm always here for a chat. Obviously, as I say, apologies for last night, but once I can feel a migraine coming on, I know I don't need to push myself. But yeah, love to you all, and I'll speak to you soon.
And tell your husband I look forward to speaking with him as well.
Absolutely. He's very interested in speaking to you.
Right on. Cool. Have a great night.
You too. Speak to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Sweet. That was great. Give it up for Shawley Redacted. And follow Shawley. Follow her content as well. If Shawley, if you want to post a link to your channel as well in the chat, people, Shawley's sharp, man. I've listened to her, and I think I got to hear Mr. Shawley as well on Birdie too. And they're both deep thinkers. So very interesting stuff. Philly, I need to go get my rooster off the roof and grab another drink as well. So if you got a second, if you want to jump up. And in the meantime, anybody that wants to jump up, we'll have the link. And I saw Foxy asked what day. That's Friday, the Custody Queens. I'm going to be interviewing them. The Custody Queens and Ron. Friday, this next Friday, the 28th at 4:30 Eastern time in the US. And then Big Amish will be on a late night show next Saturday, the 29th, It's good stuff coming up, guys. We got really good series that we're going to work on, multi-part series, and some of the big picture stuff. It's going to be good. I'm excited. We're moving forward with the channel, man. We're going to get people on board. We're going to build a community. All right, Philly.
I'm here. I was telling them about your cat encounter in New Jersey.
Yes. I am definitely a magnet for crazy animals, for sure. But anyway, I'll be right back.
Guys, keep sharing in the chat. I do make notes because I know some of you are maybe not on Discord, and you guys have great stuff that you guys share in the chat. So keep sharing. But I did create a folder. If you are part of our Discord, if you go into our Discord on the left-hand side, if you go down to Community Hub, you'll see a thing that says Custody Queens Questions. And whatever questions you have for them that you would like JJ to ask, post them there, because what we want to do is compile those questions and have them ready to ask. So please, whatever it is, just post it there. We're going to compile them, and then when he's prepping for that interview, we'll have them ready, because we want you guys to feel like you're involved in that whole interview. And if you have any recommendations, any people that you think would be a great guest for JJ to be on, or even if it's you yourself, please let us know. Or if you have a channel and you want us to share your channel, let us know. We have no problem doing that.
And I apologize if my voice is hoarse. I just had a gig right before this stream, so I'm definitely hoarse right now. That's why my voice sounds weird. All right, what I miss, Philly?
I was telling them to post their questions for the Custody Queens. I created a folder in our Discord.
Cool.
So you can have them ready.
Yeah, we want you guys to give your input as to the type of questions, and we'll pick some questions. I have some questions, and I think for me personally, because they have been following the case, they're attorneys, they're obviously knowledgeable about the court system, but also they've interviewed some of these key peripheral players in this case. And I want to pick their brains about what they think at this point, and how about that crazy interview at the Quality Inn? Free butt plugs for everybody. When we get to 2,000 followers, I'm just going to be sending butt plugs to everybody. Hopefully you guys know what I'm talking about. If you haven't watched that interview, you're in for it. Let me just tell you. I can promise you this. You haven't heard an interview in the Idaho 4 case, anything like that. Oh, no shit. Ariana, yeah. What's up, Ariana? So you remember the chaos of those late night drunken streams that DA and I did.
Wait, here's another one.
Holy shit. Yeah, it was interesting. That's fucking hilarious, man. I remember that now. My God, that was so funny. And by the way, that was me, like that's the first live streaming stuff I ever did. And we were tipping some wine. We were drinking boxed wine.
God.
And we did a members only stream from the hotel room after filming around town and doing a live, like while we drove around. And then we got back to the room and started drinking. Right. Robot Glock, good to see you. I agree with you 100%. Come on, man. Just listen to that interview, guys. It's preposterous. But it's
Is
good
E-Potty coming
entertainment.
up?
E-Potty is always welcome.
Or anybody else?
E-Potty's very elusive. He's very elusive. He's like a phantom. He comes in, he drops some bombs in the chat. Sometimes he comes up on stage and he's flying his airplane, and then he disappears into the night. But E-Potty, you're always welcome on stage.
He's got to quiet his spaceship. Just quiet
Oh
his
God,
spaceship,
come on, man.
E-Potty.
I'm always gonna have to comment on that. I mean, me saying it's your airplane is a lot tamer than what some people were saying about the noise. Yeah, E-Potty, he's a very mysterious guy. I like that. I love that about E-Potty. Oh, you
Green Eclectic
guys.
Mama. I was not going to listen to that interview, and JJ said I should, and I just
Holes, good to see you. Yes, I'm hoping Ron will be there. I like those guys a lot. Sincerely. I've been on their show twice, and they're very interesting to talk to. They have very different personalities, and I love that. Ron has got a really good sense of humor. It's just dry, and I love that. I love people with kind of a dry sense of humor, but Ron is really he's really come out, I don't want to say come out of his shell, but Ron's funny, man. And Kristen and Sam in their own way. I love watching people's facial expressions, especially during that. Yeah, Ron, I agree, Charlie. Ron isn't a G, man. He's great. All right, I see we got some more familiar faces. Rui, what's up? Good to see you. Man, you guys crack me up, man. That's so crazy, Ariana. Like, I remember that very well now. People were like instigating with you and your man. That was great. That was good stuff, man. That was me just getting started. What group are you referring to, Ariana? And I might have missed your previous comment. Yeah, that was that night in Idaho at the Quality Inn of all places was hilarious, man. All right, for anybody who experienced that, there was a problem with the Wi-Fi in the hotel. It was terrible. And DA, like one of our Wi-Fi wasn't working. We're trying to set up the stream because we were like, we're gonna go live shortly when we get back to the hotel. And so both of us are trying to set up our equipment, and the cameras are falling off, and it wasn't pretty. It wasn't smooth. But anyway, that was funny. It's good to see you. That was a memorable night. Yeah, that I've said it. I said it in the Custody Queens chat. It was not nearly as fun when we were there. The people at the front desk were not like that woman, that's for sure. It was pretty uneventful when we were there, except for a drunken live stream. Yeah. Yeah, look, Angel Heart, guys, if you haven't watched or listened to that interview, it's comedy gold. It's unintended comedy gold. I mean, it's crazy. It's a crazy interview. Crime Rat, what's up? Good to see you. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. You're speaking my language. I've been saying this for a very long time. And people have asked me, well, why do you think that? And it's hard to encapsulate everything that you've seen in a crazy case like this. But the one thing I always go back to is the simplest explanation is that you don't have that level of coordination in any case that seems to go up pretty high, including with the mainstream media all being in lockstep, unless there is sophisticated coordination going on, which you do not get from a local law enforcement, a police force in a small town, a college town. So you should watch it just for the entertainment value, Rui. I promise you won't be disappointed. You guys, let's check out the chat here. Let's take the temperature of the chat. Oh, I was cracking up, man. The best part of that is the commentary by the custody queens and Ron. Yeah, right. I agree with you. I only wield my butt plug in self-defense, guys. If you don't know what we're referring to, you got to watch that, listen to that interview. All right. Shawley, please instigate in the chat. I love when people instigate conversations, not instigate in a good way. Shawley, I've had a wild life in the past. Now I'm just a jaded woman in her 40s that occasionally likes to paint butterfly wings on her face. Yeah, I definitely lived a wild life when I was young. And I've told Philly some stories about some wacky shit that happened to me when I was young. And maybe one day we'll talk about it on stream for a late night stream, some of the wacky shit that I've experienced.
You should.
Yeah, we can get into. I'm not
know if
shy.
they happen to you.
All right, I've gotten into. Let's just say, when I was young, I was a magnet for crazy stuff. When I was young, I could tell you guys some funny stuff. The two stories I definitely want to tell at some point is the rafting expedition and my Dave Chappelle story.
For what? Without a doubt, the rafting guys is number one.
Ariana, okay, I see what you're saying here. It's interesting because what Ariana is saying, what do I think about the LDS contingent? Clearly dominant in both Idaho 4 and the Charlie Kirk case. It's, in my opinion, based on just what I know, in the Charlie Kirk case, it's very significant, extremely significant. Now, in the Idaho 4 case, feel free to fill me in because there's probably more to it that I haven't dug into specifically. But that's a topic we can get into as far as the links between, well, I'll use the Charlie Kirk scenario as an example. At Utah State University, which is close to Utah Valley, where Charlie Kirk was assassinated, they have a program that's run by the CIA. And apparently, allegedly, what I've read and what I've heard is that they like to recruit people from the LDS community because they're typically reliable, educated, and they speak other languages. It's part of the culture for them to learn other languages. That's what I've read. That's what I've heard. Certain agencies like people in that type that fit into that category. And so the big question that I've been raising about the Tyler Robinson, why would a kid who was a 4.0 high school student, scored almost perfectly on the ACTs, go to Utah State for one semester and then drop out? Oh, and by the way, that school has a CIA-run program in it. You can look it up. They probably took the website down now, but I saw it before it was taken down. The Center for Anticipatory Intelligence, CAI, which is great. I love that
JJ,
Yes.
Body E-Potty is backstage.
Okay, great. We're gonna bring E-Potty up. Oh, sorry. What's up, E-Potty?
How's it going, guys?
It's good, man. How are you doing?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
And your spaceship.
Oh, for crying out loud. Yeah, nice shirt.
It's the best.
So, once you get into Charlie Kirk, I'm all in, because I not that Idaho 4 and Charlie Kirk are connected in the obvious means, but there are connections, and I think it's a broader thing with some of these other high profile cases in different states. I agree with I forgot who brought it up. I think No Talkie Before Coffee, that this is awakening a lot of people, and I think it's, in my opinion, it's done specifically to do that. Our Justice Department is fucked.
So you think that, so what you're saying is that you think there's another entity that is facilitating
Yes.
the awakening, so to speak.
Yes. But you also know my take on this. As long as the Cleary report says that nobody died in 2022, I believe him.
Yeah,
and it could go to it being an operation, but I also think that there's some other things that could have happened, that the house was being used for an operation and shit went sideways.
Right. And I tend to agree with that. I definitely feel like there was an operation. Oh, Psycho, what's up? I'm gonna throw something out there just because this comment is very interesting. Way back, early on in the Charlie Kirk case, I posted a video before I had posted any videos on the State of the Deep YouTube channel. And I had like a crappy camera, and quality was terrible. And I said, I think people are looking at this way too traditionally. And I have the video was posted to my Substack. And I said, I think we're looking at a higher technological type of weapon, perhaps a military drone or another high-tech weapon that was remote controlled. I said that very early on in the case. And, I had no following or anything. And you had all these content creators with their theories, and then you started hearing about, the microphone and this and that and the other. But I said very early on, people are looking at this too traditionally. They're talking about conventional weapons. I don't think that's what it was. And again, it's because of how I look at stuff. If you're talking about a high-level operation, which by many people's accounts, this was the Charlie Kirk assassination, thinking they wouldn't need to have a guy on a roof with a old school rifle. Think about it. That's preposterous. So I agree with that, and I like that. I like that theory because I have talked about that, and I tend to think it was the whole rifle on the roof and Tyler Robinson is all a distraction. Yeah, Angel Heart, that's one of the theories. I tend to think it was a multifaceted operation, just like in 904. Anyway, sorry, Epati, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just
Oh
wanted
no,
to address
no,
that comment.
absolutely. Well, look, they struck that set just like they struck 11/22. They went in
Yeah,
there. His guys were tearing down the electronics that were in that tent. I was like, look
right,
at them. They're taking the big whatever that big camera was behind
right,
his head. I was like,
right.
wait, what are they doing? They're striking the set in theater. That's what you do. The
Yeah,
show's over, strike the set, and then I mean, within a week they cemented over everything. It's just one big cement pile now.
Less
right,
than 48 hours.
Yeah, yeah, and people were saying that there was like a trap door underneath. There was
Mhm.
some sort of square that you could see. It had an outline to it. And are you gonna be able to show video on this channel?
We should be able to, because I have researched that, because I think
So if
everybody knows how much I this case is big for me.
okay, because
Yeah.
I'd love to drop videos specifically having people focus on certain things. Because if you watch certain things, and the videos are out there, and there are theories that are out there. I also think that if you pull back and just look from the bird's eye view, he's down in a hexagon.
right,
He's in the middle of a hexagon, and if you look at the map of Utah was changed like 2 years ago, and it was changed to a beehive with a star in the middle of it, in a hexagon. And that's exactly what we just saw with Charlie Kirk. And if
right,
we go back, so if we go back to Hex, I go back to Steve G's hat and Hex and his hexagon logo. This
right.
is they're connected. We're watching giant, what I consider theater.
Well, I could make connections, so I could easily get, and I have talked about it a little bit. Look at what agendas are at play, right? That's what I always say. Look past the case itself. And I just wanted to real quick, two comments I want to address. Psycho Stench. I watch Jimmy Dore, by the way. Jimmy's the man. I enjoy his content. And Ariana, I tend to think it's a combination of two. Ariana says, JJ, in your opinion, hypothetically, would the operation surrounding 1122 be a malevolent or protective operation? I think they didn't expect so many people to question it. And so something that could have been a malevolent operation, they had to do damage control and shift to a protective operation at a certain point to protect information that might be sensitive. I'm going to, Epati, you're the perfect person to talk about with this. I'm going to throw something out there. I've often said, if you want to be intellectually honest, you have to steel man the other quote unquote side's argument, right? You have to, if you're being intellectually honest, I think you should do that. So what I'm going to do for a minute with Epati and Philly and everybody in the chat is I'm going to steel man a scenario in which it would explain why the public's been lied to so much relating to Koberger. Now, this is not my theory. I'm just steel manning the argument that BK was involved. Now, of all the different scenarios where I tried to wrestle with, okay, how could he, if he was, which I don't believe he was, involved in the crimes in the way that the mainstream thinks he was, how could he have been involved, and why all the cover-ups, the lies, the narrative shifting, the coordination? If there was technology being used before, during, and after the Idaho 4 crimes that they do not want the public to know that they are using, then if Koberger was involved, which I don't think he was, I'm just steel manning that argument. And the only scenario that I can come up with is that they were utilizing surveillance technology that the public, number one, doesn't know about. And number two, they don't want the public to know about. And that's why they gave us a BS story about how they came to Brian Koberger. So that's the only scenario that I can justify the argument of how he may have been involved. What do you think about that, E-Potty?
I don't know. I wonder if, like you said, this was an operation. From everything that we've heard, this was one of the most high-profile houses. I mean, they were surveilling it from cameras that were in trees, apparently. They have informants. They've got undercover officers that are, look, they even do house calls when there's no noise coming from the house, right? They would like, let's check this house. Let's just do a preemptive, noise check. Well, okay. We know you guys are watching this house. And I'm sure that there were a lot more cameras there. They know what was going on. If they fucked up and this is some sort of cover up, okay. All right. Because they don't want anybody to know, what they were doing.
Right. Right.
Can I piggyback on your tree cams, guys?
Go ahead.
Good point. So my ex, who was a Fed, he was very paranoid. So we had tree cams. What you have to know about tree cams is they have an SD card in there. They're battery operated. They're not hooked up to any kind of Wi-Fi, right? You just have to make sure that they're, still powered. So none of that is, I would say, trackable, because it's not on the Wi-Fi. They're SD cards that you can pull out, put it into your computer, and then you can see. So we had a lot of tree cams all throughout our property that he would maintain. So that's a good point, E-Potty.
Yeah,
I think it was there.
Yeah, so part of me thinks that they're feeding us little bits and pieces at specific times to figure this all out. I mean, honestly, it felt like this case was dead. He was convicted. We're all kind of wondering, hopefully he's going to do post-conviction relief. And we're just sitting here waiting. And then Christopher Wickham came out with his book, and all of a sudden it blew up. We all got energized again, and everybody was digging, and oh my God, and this and that. Do you remember when Christopher Wickham, I wonder if he was like talking in code, the way people thought that Koberger was. Christopher Wickham talked about the Cassandra complex. Remember that? Where you knew the truth and you would say the truth, but nobody would believe you. It's a curse. Well, there's a band out there called the Cassandra Complex. And they literally wrote a song titled Moscow, Idaho about the town. And I was like, that doesn't come out of nowhere. It can't. It can't just be a coincidence.
When did they write the song? That's the question, right?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Reading the lyrics, it means nothing to me.
Well, here's the thing. Just to rewind for a second. and then I want to address a couple of the comments that I saw pop up. I have said many times that I have not ruled out a exercise, if you will, could have taken place that could have been connected to research funding, that they never expected the public to question the official narrative. The only reason why I do not speak about that type of stuff much is because it's just basic, logic. Because if I'm wrong, then it's it's bad, right? That's, what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the only reason. Now I can think tank ideas that would be plausible based on what I know about operations.
But
We
why is that?
know logically that the government has, I mean, anybody could listen to one of those mobster interviews where they talk about this guy, there was a hit out on this guy and we had to pull him out, right? This is nothing we haven't heard 1,000 times that the FBI did. So there is a scenario, just logically speaking, and forget the Idaho 4 case, in a case where there might have been CIs involved, where they got information that the CIs were in danger and they had to be extracted. Now, there's other scenarios too, but again, I don't talk about it in the context of the Idaho 4 case, just for the simple fact that if I'm wrong, it's a pretty bad thing to be speaking about.
Yeah, but you can say alleged and...
Well, but I mean, it's not, I'm not worried about strikes on my channel. It's really trying to be considerate of the situation if I was wrong. That's it. And I don't have enough logical evidence to be able to present that argument. Now, the Cleary report is a very compelling piece of evidence, and it makes you ask questions. It makes you wonder. Philly can tell you I have talked about so many versions of theories with her that I don't talk about on the stream. And it's simply for that reason. It's not that I can't find an intellectual way of piecing things together to make a theory and explain a theory like that and why it would happen and how it would happen. So I have said it many times. I think nothing would surprise me in an operation, like literally nothing. If in 30 years something got declassified and I found out some case was like an extraction operation or it was a staged event or whatever, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest bit. So I just think there's an operation involved, in my opinion. It's so obvious to me. Now, can I lay out every aspect of it? No, I can't. Because if you got multiple agencies that go up very high and have a lot of resources, their capacity is beyond what most people could even fathom. And I saw somebody post something a little while ago in the chat about what they're capable of. And it's beyond what your average person could even understand. The technology, what we have access to and what we know about is decades behind military level technology. Decades behind. The TOCA, did you by chance see our video on the flock cameras and TOCA technology?
Yeah.
The TOCA technology, for anybody who doesn't know, TOKA, is the most crazy thing if you look at the implications of that in both the Idaho 4 case, Charlie Kirk, Luigi Mangione, etc. The implications of the TOCA technology. Now, we're hearing about TOCA now. How do people think they test these technologies? They test them in the world. The government and the military, I mean, they've tested bioweapons on American citizens.
Well, that's what they did with 5G, right? They threw 5G up faster than any other construction in history, and they didn't ask our permission.
Yeah, and our cell service hasn't improved at all.
I think that was all probably for these data centers.
Yeah, look, we're gonna do deep dives on this stuff in the future. And Ipati, by the way, your assistance with research is greatly appreciated.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad it helped.
Yeah,
JJ,
man. Well, yeah, go ahead, Philly.
I want to bring you back to something that you talked with me about that I think is important. When people make the connection, like with the Charlie Kirk case and the movie Snake Eyes, and you were like, oh, yeah, they utilize that. Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah. Yep.
I think that's so important because it connects a lot of dots. They utilize stuff that were in movies that we've seen. And then we're like, oh, look at the connection, but they purposely do it. Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, well, it's predictive programming.
There you
right?
go.
And I threw something out there on a recent stream just for shits and giggles where I said, what if, just because I'm rereading 1984, what if there's this subset of these powerful elites, because in my opinion, that's who the CIA actually works for, that are just having a laugh at our expense and just pulling stuff from books and from movies and this
from The Simpsons.
Yeah, creating operations based on these. Now we know, if anybody who's dug into it, the connection between the CIA and Hollywood. Look at all the CIA shows on the streaming platforms now. The people think that's an accident. They're trying to whitewash the CIA. And so they put out all these different shows. It started with Homeland. It's evolved from there. So I think that, like the movie, what's that movie that Obama produced with Julia Roberts?
Leave the World Behind.
Leave the World Behind. That, to me, was a psyop.
Yeah.
The movie Civil War. It's predictive programming. So if you extrapolate from these ideas that they utilize, like fifth generation warfare, information they utilize. So let me go back to the Hollywood thing. For anybody who hasn't seen it, and I want the chat to tell me what they think about this. The movie Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, with it's about Chuck Barris, The Gong Show. He wrote that book, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. They turned it into a movie. Ipati, you know what that movie was about?
I didn't see it.
Okay.
Great movie.
Highly recommend it. It was Sam, what's that guy's name?
Sam, yeah, I know who.
You know who he is.
Yeah, great actor.
Big actor, great actor. I'll think of it in a second. George Clooney, right? So he played Chuck Barris. And the idea was, Chuck Barris wrote this book that said basically he was a CIA hitman. And George Clooney in the movie plays his handler. And it's a crazy movie, right? So what I'm getting at is, what if, which I believe is the case, Hollywood was just another propaganda arm of the CIA and other powerful entities. I don't look at the CIA as a separate American agency. I don't think the intelligence agencies work that way. I think they function as a arm of the global elites. And if you do enough research into it, it's a lot of information that would support that. But anyway, so you look at all these movies, you look at all these TV shows, to me, once you see it, you can't unsee it. There is so much predictive programming. I mean, they on that show, you guys, God, it's so many. Let me see if I can remember it. The guy who used to be in The Office played Jim on The Office.
Yeah.
He did that series based on the Clancy. You know, Tom Clancy was like one of the producers.
Yeah.
I can't.
Oh God.
What's the name of that show? I can't believe I can't remember the name of it. In the first or second season of that show, might even be the first season.
Matt Damon did the movie.
No.
Oh.
You're thinking of the Bourne Identity.
Yeah, right.
No, this was based on that wasn't a Clancy book. That was a Robert Ludlum book. This was based on a Tom Clancy thing. It was guys in the chat, help me out here. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's a big series. Well, anyway, in the first episode of the first or second season, he's giving a lecture at a college, and he says, "So, where do you guys think the next political hotbed is? What country?" And then people raising their hands or going, Ukraine or Russia or China or whatever. They're all giving their, answers. And he says, "No, it's Venezuela." Now, this is well before we went into Venezuela. And he says in this episode, Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world, et cetera, et cetera. It's predictive programming. Just implant these ideas in people's heads. Jack Ryan, that's it. Brandon Rudder, good to see you. Thank you. I'm drawing a blank. It's been a long day. But anyway, I'm not sure what you're referring to, Ariana. Oh, who would out JJ? Who? Are you guys? Is that CIA rumor circulating again about me?
Well, it's like every time something happens, people run back to old Simpsons episodes, and they're like, "Oh, look, Kobe died in a helicopter crash. They predicted it." Trump comes down the escalator, right, with Melania when he decided to run for president. Oh, how'd they know that? I mean, yeah, they could literally be saying, "Oh, well, the Simpsons have us doing that, so let's do that."
Right. Sam Rockwell, too. Everybody in the chat's now reminding me of stuff that I forgot.
Right. Yeah, Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell. I can't believe I couldn't remember. He's been in a million movies. We were talking about that, Brandon, a little bit ago, the Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. So here's the thing. I believe, and I haven't talked about it very much in videos, certainly not when we're talking about Idaho 4 and stuff like that. I think that the reality, I talked about it a little bit in the Matrix video that I did. We have been presented with this version of reality, the Matrix, if you will. And so if you take that idea, and Ipati, I know you'll probably agree with this, and extrapolate that and pick it apart and look at all the different aspects of history and society that we've been taught throughout our lives and what has been presented to us, you find out that they were patently false.
Yeah.
The founding of America, the Revolutionary War, the Civil War.
Yeah.
Who really was pulling the strings? Now, I will encourage anybody who's and I don't think we have this too much in this group of people, but some people will be like, that's crazy. What are you talking about? Well, that's because they have an idea in their head that they've held on to for a long time. And when you threaten that, most people will not go and do the research. They just won't bother. They'll brush it off. Look into some of these foundational ideas about how America, and we can get into this stuff. We can talk about it. And I plan to do a future episode based on the book, The Secret Founding of America. So there is, and this, again, I'm not going off the rails here. This ties in with what you're saying about this sort of large scale alternate reality that we're presented with, and psyops.
Yeah.
Right? It's something that you and I, and I'm sure some people in the chat are like, yeah, that's what they do. What is that saying, Ipati? It's like, it's easier to control people who think they're free than people who know they're not free.
Yeah, that sounds right.
You know, it's very interesting. In fact, Birdie sent me a video in the last month of a guy who was either on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, and he's basically addressing that issue. And what he talks about is that the Revolutionary War, like, all right, for anybody who's never heard this, it's pretty widely agreed that America wasn't founded because of a Revolutionary War with Shawley Redacted's people. It was, Freemasons and the Illuminati types that actually founded America. And if you go further back, if you research, the Illuminati was supposedly founded in 1776.
Yeah.
But if you go further back, people believe that the Illuminati was just a branch of the Freemasons. And if you go even further back, then you could start getting into the Knights Templar and so on and so forth. So the alternative history is that, I'm just going to say Freemasons, because I believe that they were all interconnected. These secret societies really were the ones that they saw that there was pushback in the colonies and they needed to get control of it so they could maintain power. So what do? Convince people that they're free and have a constitution and have leaders that were really Freemasons, the founding fathers, to convince people that, all right, you're free people. But there were all these loopholes written into the Constitution. And we won't go too deep down that rabbit hole, but I would encourage people to dig into these widely held beliefs that are just accepted, like accepted science.
So the reason why I believe that, and I remember your very first video where you said, what if everything you were taught was a lie? And yeah, that opens up your brain to think, hey, everything that we were taught in school, everything that we were taught by our parents, everything that we were taught by, stuff that we read, stuff we watch. This is why I asked you about time. Time is a human construct, and throughout history, supposedly, they changed a calendar. They got rid of 10 days. A year is 365 days, and then we have to correct it every 4 years. Why? You can make a second however long it has to be in order to space out, a correct year.
Yeah, well, look, here's the thing. What you're talking about is the same thing I'm talking about. These accepted ideas that we've been presented with for a long, for as long as we can all remember, right? Time, gravity, etc. Now, when you start digging into the secret societies and things, and you start to get into the mysticism and ancient knowledge that allegedly the Illuminati and all these powerful secret societies had access to, and so on and so forth, I tend to not believe that angle. I tend to think that they presented that to people so people would think they had some given, they were the chosen ones, right? And people would be more likely to go along with whatever respective agendas they were presenting. So I tend to I get the premise of what you're saying, right? Because we're talking about a bigger thing.
Yeah.
Like time is just a small example of one of the many, many, many things we've all accepted constructs.
I'm talking the Matrix. I'm talking that we are this the stuff that we see, the stuff that we have around us. It's all crap. It's crap.
Yeah, no, look, man. Here's the question. I'm going to throw it out there. Let's all chew on this. Why have we been lied to about the very nature of our reality and history? I mean, it's a fairly innocuous question, but when we ask that question, it's sort of rhetorical. We ask that question, it seems like an obvious question, right? And people will have their version of an answer to that. But again, I think, it ties into what I said, that idea of people that think they're free are easier to control than people who know they're not free.
So, yeah, Brandon, you're right. 13 months. See, I'm not the only one that thinks that way. 28 days, 13 months. Perfect cycle. Things have been removed, hidden from us, distorted. Yeah, I guess when we do die, we'll find out everything. But I don't know why we find out that the human body can heal itself. It's supposed to heal itself. It has the systems to heal our own bodies, but we go to these Western medicine doctors that fuck us up.
Right. Well, the Rockefellers had a lot to do with that.
Of course they did. I can't wait till they start taking
Don't start with that, because I'll go crazy with that.
I know. But I can't wait till they start taking his name off of all of the buildings here.
Well, here I have a theory, Epati, and everybody in the chat. I hope people will, engage with this idea. There's the everyday life that we see in front of us. And you guys have probably heard me talk about what I believe to be a collective consciousness. If the power structures that have existed for thousands of years would allow citizens, people of the world, large groups of people to be awakened, well, then they would lose control, because then people would awaken to the idea that they don't need people leading them.
Right.
And so and this is like the most reduced version of it, obviously. There's probably 100 levels we could talk about. They need to create a scenario in which it's like in 1984, erase history, right? Because what happens if people really know the truth about bigger picture things, then they don't need that to be told to them by people and people like the chosen ones to dole out their wisdom to the masses. And people in groups, there's a segment of these elites, these people that are a very small percentage of the population. There's for every level, like Shawley is what you're saying. We could, I'm sure, and I'm not going to do this, but if we wanted to, like this questioning method, right? It's in psychology. It's sort of like Socratic method, but it's called something else. Shawley might know what I'm referring to. It's like part of cognitive behavioral psychology. So you have this, all right, someone says, "Oh, everything's horrible," or whatever. And you do Socratic questioning, but there's a version of that where each thing, they say this, and you go, "Well, why?" Explain that. And then that answer is given. And then you go, "Well, why?" Explain that. We could probably go 100 levels down, right? But that would be a 2-week long stream to get into all the levels. And you get what I'm saying, right? Like we could really get granular about it, because with everything there's levels. But one of the things I said the first time I ever went on Birdie is that, Birdie, remember, the elites think in terms of decades. Regular people don't. So what they're planning and the agendas they have, first of all, they go back hundreds of years, number one. Number two, they're not thinking the way that regular people think. There's levels to it. And so it's just how deep down the rabbit hole do people want to go? And the Matrix is a really good metaphor for that. So time, all right, I'm going to tie it back into how we got into this discussion. It's a construct, a human math. Who created math?
Yeah.
People created math. Who created language? People created language. Everything that we've accepted, from science to language to you name it, has been created by people. And so I think that the power structure doesn't want citizens to connect to the higher powers. And I'm not a religious guy anymore, and I'm not like, I don't meditate, and I'm not super like into all this new age stuff. Yeah, that might be what I was referring to, Shawley. I was just using CBT as a reference of how you challenge people's faulty logic. But you could take that logic and we could dissect things, which is why I always ask the question, why? It's the simplest thing, why, that doesn't get asked enough. And I think because it's so simple, people overlook it. For any scenario, any narrative, why is the government structured the way it is? Why do we have a two-party system? You have to ask that question, because you'll never get the answer unless you ask the questions. Anyway, I don't want to get too philosophical.
Yeah, no, the two-party system is just, it doesn't matter. They could have three parties. They'd still control all three parties. They're going to pick the guy or gal to, follow suit.
Yeah, and I think this new movement of this America First Party is going to be just another means by which they try to steer people back to the Matrix, people that have lost faith in the system.
Listen, I was all gung ho with the Tea Party, and then that blew up, and I thought, okay, all the parties suck. I moved out to California for several years to pursue acting, and when I was out there, I decided, all right, you know what? I'm going to listen to all the problems that are out here and be a real Californian. And I was looking at the Green Party. I was looking at the Liberal Party. I was looking at the Conservative Party, and they all sucked. they all sucked. And I just said, yeah, this is the system just feeds itself, and they'll vote in or they'll pick whoever they want to, push the agenda, and slowly but surely, it screws the public.
Careful.
Why?
Why? Because if you looked at the recent data, 32% of the Conservative Party have now moved to socialism.
Oh,
Why is that? Why is that? Because again, all the other things didn't work. So now let's make it hard to own a home. Let's make it hard to live. So now these young people are thinking, okay, well, socialism is the cure. So I say careful, and JJ's probably going to kill me later, but careful when you tell people not to vote. Careful. It's a
I'm not.
fine.
Yeah,
No. It's
I hear
do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
It's a
do.
fine line, because when I heard that number the other day, that 32% have moved from that party to, and you see it if you're watching, you're seeing these people getting voted in that are conservatism, socialism. I'm sorry, because we have now made these young people think that's the only way, because that's another way to screw with them, right? If I'm being honest.
Well, it's an interesting thing, because it's like, are they just trying to keep us stuck in this matrix system?
Mm-hmm.
Or do they want people to lose faith in the system and not vote so they can
There you
run
go.
roughshod? Right. So that's a complicated question.
So it's also very interesting because the extreme right and the extreme left
Mm-hmm.
almost touch, right? They almost become. You're a tyrant whether you're extreme right or an extreme left. Communism, there was a tyrant. So, yeah, but
Thank you, Brandon. You're correct. You can vote yourself into socialism. You got to kill your way out. Like JJ and I have deep conversations. Like, they've tried all these other methods. They're not working, right? I feel like we're all waking up and we're all seeing all this stuff. So what do? Then you make it harder to survive. You make it harder to survive. And what I think it was Reagan that said, the worst thing that people can say is, we're the government, we're here to help.
Yeah.
But all these young people, and I have a 24-year-old son who is in this matrix, is like, I did the right thing. I went to high school, I went to college, I'm working. I still can't own a home. I still can't do this. And then you have this little flag over here, like, oh, well, we'll help you. And we're talking about healthcare for all, grocery stores, for all. Like, they're making it sexy. They're making socialism sexy for these young people. And then you have us who have lived in it, and we're like, you can't be this party or that party. So you have to be careful of the message.
Yeah, listen, I vote. I'm not saying I don't vote. But is that part of the American dream thing that is coming up?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I just wanted
to a 5 or 6 part. Go ahead, JJ. Sorry.
I just want to shout out Captain 11 also, but I think that the whole socialism idea, I believe now what we're seeing is all a function of the Great Reset agenda. Because if you look, several years ago, that was talked about a lot. The Great Reset, the World Economic Forum. And then you didn't hear anything about it. Now, if you look at all these policies that are being passed, they all align directly with the Great Reset agenda. So I think the socialism push, what is the Great Reset? It's stakeholder capitalism, which is a small group of powerful, wealthy people own everything, very small group, and everybody else has to lease or rent from them. That is one of the key components of the Great Reset agenda. Well, what would be a good way to groom people to accept that? If you get young people to accept more socialism type policies, which I just talked about this last night. Orwell talked about this a lot. And he was a democratic socialist. Socialism and communism always vamp and morph into totalitarianism throughout history, largely. There's a few exceptions. These movements get co-opted, and that's what I think is happening with the whole push for socialism, democratic socialism. And I think it's part of the Great Reset agenda. That's their way of pushing that on people. And what's a way to do that? Make life unbearable for a lot of people. All these oligarchs and these bankers cause all the prices to go up across the board. It's harder for the middle class people to live. And then what? You force them into, right, the one, that's kind of what I'm getting at. COVID was, I just talked about this, the largest wealth transfer in history, upward. And so what do? You make people have to throw up their hands and accept quote unquote socialism. And and certainly with the younger generation who was more likely to accept it. And so anyway, I didn't want to derail the discussion.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
It's just, I'm just saying that I always look past the obvious, like the whole DSA, what is it called? The DSA party, right? Democratic Socialists of America. In my opinion, these are all people that were installed by the World Economic Forum types. So we could dig into this stuff more in the future. It's hard because my brain wants to go off on tangents, and I need to be like have a set topic, and then we can all focus on that one topic, right? Because we could really go off and go down the rabbit hole, and then
but it fires my brain. It lights it on fire, and I'm going down different rabbit holes. I mean, this is how my brain works now. Rosendahl, his name, D-A-H-L, right? Tesdale, D-A-H-L. Dollinger, D-A-H-L. Kaylee's just had a dahlia flower named after her. Idaho has D-A-H in it. They were going to make a dollhouse. Everything was doll. The woman Judy Dahl who found Mowich wandering the streets.
Right.
I mean, there are too many connections there, right? That's not just a coincidence. There's something there. I don't know what it is, but I see it.
Yeah. Well, look, man, your brain is a type of brain that connects things.
That interview with Butt Plug Lady, and I saw Quality in immediately. I went, oh, Quinn. I was like, oh, is that a sign?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think that it's a burden to bear sometimes when your brain tends to make connections, because how do let's just say collectively, right? How do you explain to people that information, words, all these things are used to manipulate people? Then you have to start then you get into the whole matrix idea, this alternate reality that we live in. And I like what I'm seeing in the chat, and I apologize that I'm not engaging with the chat as much because I do read the chat. Anybody who knows, I do read the chat. By the way, Hangman's Joke, good to see you. I believe Hangman's Joke was also there when DA and he was in the chat when we did a members only. Is that correct, Hangman's Joke? When we were in Moscow, and I think you were there, man. That was my first live stream ever. I'm pretty sure it was you. Now, I wanted to just engage a little with the chat for a minute. I saw somebody, people talking about two things I saw being discussed in the chat. One was like, China, earlier China, all these totalitarian governments. What we know about these countries is only what we've been told. And so I don't put any stock in anything. Yeah, Hangman's Joke, right on. Good to see you. I don't put stock in any of this shit. Pro or con, we hear about these other countries because I think a lot of that information is tailored for different reasons, political reasons, etc. So, it's very difficult, in my opinion, to really know what's going on in these other countries. America, in my opinion, all right, I'm going to just lay it out there. This is one of the grand conspiracies, in my opinion. I don't believe that countries fight each other anymore. I think that's an ancient idea. I think these globalist elites, global elites, the top of the pyramid, they create these wars between countries for strategic, geopolitical and economic reasons. That countries don't really oppose each other. Anybody who becomes the head of a big country, they know what the real deal is. And that everything that we're told is nonsense. I don't believe, I've had this debate with people before, that we really have this country's fighting this country and Iran versus America and this country versus, I don't buy that. I think these leaders, it's all like backroom handshakes, wink, wink, nod, nod. We're against you. You're against us. I think the bankers control everything. Bellum's Llama, good to see you. Yeah, I agree. It's us peasants think that we're fighting Iran and Russia and we oppose and China. I don't buy it for a second. Right, I agree, Brandon. I've talked about this. I think it's all part of the grand psyop. I don't buy it. And so that's just one of the bigger ways that I look at things. And I will little plug one of the future series that I'm going to be doing, we're going to do on this channel, it's a big one. It's the global power structure, its origins and the structure of it. And I've already compiled a lot of information. Now there are versions of it, and we really can only go so deep in a stream, but that's why we're going to do a series about it. So that's coming in the future. We got the American Dream series coming up. That's a big one because it ties in with the global power structure. Again, all of the videos that I'm going to be doing have a thread that runs through them. And I'm not going to lay it out for everybody. People are smart. They can figure out what the different threads are. Sorry, Ipati, I didn't mean to.
No, I just wanted to ask if you were going to name names.
Yes.
Okay.
You know what the big name is.
Well, I know a bunch of names, but
you know what the big name is. You must know. I know you know.
Bill Cosby.
Right, it's Bill Cosby.
I knew it.
It starts with an R.
Yeah, Rothschilds. But okay.
But it
there's
goes
also
before them. It goes back before them. I get
they're
that.
just but they're the bankers of the 13 families, right? So the 13 families are the original. Here's the thing too, and I they all changed their names. They changed the way they look. They infiltrate into powerful positions in different countries. I mean, wasn't that what Nathan Rothschild did, or whatever, the grandpappy Rothschild? All
Yeah.
his sons went out and they took a corner of the planet and became the financiers of that region.
Yeah. And some people, I mean, God, this is a big rabbit
Yeah, I
hole.
know. I'm sorry.
We probably shouldn't
shouldn't
get
open
into
this
it
up now.
tonight
Yeah,
because we need to lighten things up.
I know. I'm sorry.
We need to lighten things up because too much dread and darkness is not good in one sitting.
I do want to say one thing. Ariana, she posted a bunch of Scandinavian names, and I just want to say that on Brian Koberger's whiteboard, there were Nordic symbols, and they redacted a bunch of different things, but they took pictures from different angles, so they forgot to redact some in some angles and the others in the other angles, so you could see it. I don't
Dude,
know if it means anything, but
well,
it's
here's the
certainly
thing.
interesting.
I'm going to throw out an
I know.
idea right now, and then we're going to transition
Okay.
from the darkness. All right. We're going to transition away from the darkness. What if a lot of that stuff was just planted to keep
Yep.
people,
Yep.
Yes,
to keep me saying this stuff.
Right.
Right.
So, it's Odinism or whatever.
Yes.
Right. So let's. It's going to be it might be a rough transition, but we're going to try to transition everybody. We're going to go away from doom and gloom, and I'm going to leave it to the chat. Free butt plugs for all, says Shawley Redacted. We're going to transition because too much doom and gloom in one stream is not healthy.
Yeah. Move into the Bears.
So what I'm going to do is while we're and guys, it's late, but I had a coffee shortly before the stream started. So I'm cool with going later. You got people in the chat, and again, I want to shout out Captain 11. But we want to move to the light, out of the dark, like Captain 11 is echoing my sentiments.
All right, somebody else has got to come up here. I'm going to jump off.
All right, hey,
Thanks, man.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate it.
It's always interesting. You're always welcome, and your efforts are greatly appreciated.
Thanks, bud.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon. All right. So if somebody else wants to come up, you're always welcome, but be forewarned. We're transitioning out of the dark into the light because too much darkness in one night is not good for anybody. So yeah, let's let me say hello to some people. What's up, Valerie? And I've been seeing the comments, guys. I've been watching the chat. It's just, I'm trying to facilitate discussions on here, and you guys are dropping some great bombs in the chat. I love it. There's some freaks up here tonight, Hangman's joke. That's right. I wear that badge proudly. Yeah, it's too much of the darkness on one time. Yeah, it's good. Look, I agree with Ariana. It's good that you can discuss these things because there might be some stuff. Yeah, right. Brandon stirring the shit. Eat a peach. Oh, by the way, I'm going to talk about that. Angel Heart just gave me an idea to transition. Brandon, stirring the shit. So last night, I watched the new Greg Allman documentary. And, I was always a big Allman Brothers fan. And I would highly recommend it if you're an Allman Brothers fan because it's a really well done documentary. And so to go back to the Eat a Peach, that was a famous Allman Brothers album. So it was a really heavy documentary because, as you guys may know, Greg Allman, he lived a pretty crazy life. Him and his brother Dwayne, his father was murdered when they were young kids. And then in the Allman Brothers band, Dwayne Allman was like the founding father of the Allman Brothers, the big brother to Greg. And he died in a motorcycle accident when he was 24 years old. And Dwayne Allman was already a legendary musician. He was playing with literal legends of music when he was in his early 20s. And then Barry Oakley, the bass player from the Allman Brothers, died resulting from a motorcycle accident not long after, like a year later. And it was a lot of darkness, but it was it's a really good documentary. Foxy, you're gonna stay in the dark. Look, I can get into the darkness, guys, but I want to try to transition a little bit. I had all these grand ideas. Well, Renee Mankoff, what's up? Well, thank you. My mind is a little scary to me sometimes. Yeah, music. Okay. To Captain One's point, I've been a musician for many years. I've been a working musician to this day. I just had a gig earlier tonight. And music is very much like, I know you're joking, Foxy, by the way. Has been a salvation for me because, it was sports when I was a kid. I was a wacky kid. And then for guys that may not know this in the chat, who haven't listened to me very long, I lost both my parents when I was relatively young. I was in a dark place. And that was right around the time where I just immersed myself in guitar, and that kind of steered me into music. And music was something that's been a big part of my life for a long time. And it does unite us. And they're shoving all this AI music down everybody's throats. And we need to hold on to music because it's one of the things, like to one's point, that does unite people. Myself, Robin, Dago, we did a series that I participated in about Kurt Cobain's death, and we theorized that Kurt Cobain was somebody who united millions of people around the world, which is a threatening thing to the power structure. So thanks, Foxy. This was a long time ago, and when I was a young lad, but music was instrumental in helping me throughout the years. And anybody who is a musician, typically certain types of people gravitate towards that, to the arts. And I think there's something about music and art. It's far beyond just the thing itself. So, I definitely am thankful that I have music in my life still. Sweet Melissa, we're just talking about Greg Allman. Good to see you. The new Greg Allman documentary. Just you can get it on Amazon. I just watched it last night. It's very good. And, music for anybody, all right? I've One and I and others have on streams have talked quite a bit about music. And music is one of those things where you can take darkness and you kind of transform it into something that's it has dark undertones, but there's something about people universal feelings and understanding that unites people. Look, I mean, I've used AI for different things, but and we've all seen some really, especially around the Idaho 4 case, some fantastic AI songs. Cat's Mojo made some, right? It was Cat's Mojo. Oh no, it was Cat Farm that made some dope AI Idaho 4 songs and stuff like that. Yeah, look, man, I have mixed feelings about Amazon, and I've canceled like several of the other streaming platforms. I highly recommend it, Sweet Melissa. I watched it. It's really good. And I've seen every Allman Brothers documentary. I've read multiple books about the Allman Brothers and Greg Allman. So there's some really good stuff in this documentary. Greg Allman's one of my all-time favorite singers. Yeah. So anyway, I'm trying to bring us back to the light. Yeah, right. I agree with Hangman's joke here. Like, I'm definitely someone who loves all aspects of actual music. I love the rhythmic parts. I love the melody. I love the lyrics. And that's, I think, why my tastes in music are so broad. And so I'm thankful that I've had music in my life. And I agree with Angel Heart. I mean, I love so many different bands and different types of music. And I played in different bands that played completely different types of music. One says, I've used music in several times at work to help get out of a dangerous situation. There's truth to music, soothes the beast. Yeah, I agree with that. I think music, in my opinion, the Oliver Sacks, the famous neurologist, that's who that movie Awakenings with Robert De Niro was based on. Robin Williams played Oliver Sacks. He wrote a book called he was like a neuroscientist, neurologist, called Musophilia, and it's about music's impact on the brain and his actual science behind it. So yeah, that music is very powerful, both spiritually and scientifically. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of ancient wisdom in connection to music. I mean, it goes back to the primal, percussion and things. So yeah, and guys, I'll talk about music all night. So it's yeah, Shawley, right on. What do you play, Shawley? Singer, piano player? Talk to me. And I have a feeling Shawley's going to tell me she was a piano player and a singer, but I could be wrong. During the pandemic, if you will, there were no gigs, obviously. And I don't play piano, but I know music theory, so I could sit at a keyboard and figure out the chords and stuff like that. Just because if you know basic music theory, you understand chord structure. And I bought a little USB keyboard, and I would go, since there were no gigs happening and hotels were dirt cheap, on the weekends I would go down to Denver just to get out of Dodge. And I'd bring my little USB keyboard with my MacBook, and I would teach myself some songs on, with headphones on and stuff. I love the piano. All right, I'm sure I'm missing all these comments. For all you guys that have been hanging in there, man, I really appreciate you. Yeah, well, I agree with Captain 11. 11's a vampire, in case you guys didn't know that. And that's, by the way, if you guys don't know, that's 11 from the Devil's Advocates, Captain 11. Yeah, you guys, so one of my regrets is that I didn't learn to play piano when I was young. I play guitar, and I still have the keyboard, and I've been wanting to. I've been so busy, I haven't even had time to practice guitar, much less plug in the keyboard and practice. But I want to get back to it. It's on the list of things to do. Anyway, Shawley, I apologize. I probably missed your comment. Where is it? Okay. Shawley, there it is. Okay, so no piano. I started with drums as a kid, and I was obsessed with the drums. And then I got obsessed with the guitar. And then I just got into singing. I don't even know. I can probably recall how it all happened. It was kind of a random thing. One night, if we do another late night stream, I'll tell you guys a crazy story of something that happened when I was a freshman in high school that foreshadowed my later life. Shawley, come on, man. You can't play all those at the same time. Wow. I'm really thankful you guys are hanging in there and hanging out. Psycho plays the tambourine. Maybe because Bob Dylan was high when he was writing those songs. Could that be possibly somehow connected to it? So, for you music nerds out there, I'm a big Tom Waits fan who was heavily influenced by Bob Dylan when he was first starting out in music. And Tom Waits is a guy who he had many musical lives. He started out as a folkie, then he became like a jazzy, kind of bluesy guy. And then he transitioned later in his career to really experimental, cool, unique music. So if you haven't, his voice is not to everybody's taste, but if you like Bob Dylan, you like those really interesting songwriters, I would highly recommend Tom Waits. Yeah, Tom Waits has been in a ton of movies. He's one of my favorites, by the way, guys. Tom Waits is one of my all-time favorites. Dylan is one of my all-time favorites. Psycho. Cowbell is where it's at. More cowbell. You can never have too much cowbell. For years and years and years, I was like, man, I wish I could play piano. I was in a band with a dude who's a great, talented singer-songwriter. It was actually a pretty cool band, all original band when I was in my 20s. That I mean, you guys, I will tell a music story if you guys can tolerate it. Um, if you guys want, I'll tell you a formative story that really had an impact on my musical life. All right, Curious Minds, good to see you. It is late, that's for sure. All right. Yeah, like I'm everybody who's listened to me go on and on, go like tangents and stuff knows I'm not afraid to talk about anything. But I will do this. I will tell you, since we got some music heads in the chat, I'll tell you kind of a cool music story. I was living in Florida. I only lived there for about a year and a half. And I moved back to New Jersey. I was probably 27 at the time. And my friend, a good old buddy that I'm still close with today, was managing this band. It was an all original local band in Jersey. And they were like young dudes, a couple of years younger than me. Interesting songs, just good, gritty, like soulful songs. And my friend who was managing this band booked the music at this club, which is bar, not really a club, restaurant bar, that was owned by Tom Cruise's sister. She owned this place so I moved back and my friend got live music into that place. He convinced Tom Cruise's sister to start having music there. So I ended up through this place meeting this dude who was an older guy, much more experienced than I was. We started playing every Sunday at Tom Cruise's sister's place. And so my buddy's managing the music at this bar, and then he's managing this band. So through meeting different bands that were playing at this restaurant bar, he got this motorcycle gang asked him if he could book bands for their yearly party. And so he booked artists that played at this restaurant bar to play their party. And I was one of the people. And I was going to just play solo acoustic. But then they would have, after me, a couple of bands. And so I ended up, just opening up acoustic. And this other band that my buddy was managing, this original band, saw me play. And the lead singer of that band liked my voice. And he invited me to come jam with them sometime at their little band house. And so this band was already gigging in New York City and building a following and building up their name as an original band. And so long story short, they asked me to join the band. And I remember, like, I didn't have crazy amounts I'd never played in an original band. I just did bar gigs and stuff. Next thing you know, I'm like that fast, I'm playing bars in New York City, like known places, popular places regularly. And I'm playing in this band that's like actually got some producers looking at them and all this. But the sad part of the story is that after about 7 months of being in that band, the band broke up. And I went on my merry way and ended up moving to California, and a whole other chapter of my life started. But that was a really crazy experience for me because I went from just being a dude who's banging on an acoustic guitar to playing in this all original and really interesting band. And it was a very significant musical time in my life because I was thrown into it So, all right, we got all kinds of people from different time zones in here. It's after midnight where I'm at. So how about this, guys? It's 12:20 here. How about we wrap it up in about 10 minutes or so? We've been going at it pretty hard and long here with the stream. But I really want to thank everybody that's hung in there, and Epati and Shawley for coming up and chatting. Captain 11 for stopping in, and everybody that's participated. Foxy, shoot, oh, sorry. What question you got? I'm an open book most of the time. So I'm guessing Hangman's Joke is on the East Coast. And we got Psycho is, I guess, Central, right? Central Time. Shawley is across the pond. Right. This is great. This is a whole funny little narrative we can talk about one night just for shits and giggles. All right. So I wonder where is, oh, Renee. So you must be on the West Coast. Yeah, it's cool seeing where everybody's at. But you guys, I want to say, I appreciate people that have been supporting me, people that knew me from Devil's Advocates and then Birdie and the Custody Queens. I appreciate everybody. And yeah, so I really appreciate everybody's support. Oh, Ariana is in Texan. I was in Austin 2 years ago. I really liked it. In November, I was there in November. Shawley's having her morning coffee. Well, thank you, Angel Heart. I appreciate that. Did you ask me what band, Angel? Is that somebody asked me what band? The band that I was referring to was called the Homegrowns. It's a long time ago, guys. Well, thank you, Shawley. I appreciate that very much. Part of my mission, so to speak, about this channel is I got so disgusted with all the divisiveness of content creators because they get clicks from that. They benefit. And financially, in many cases, these bigger channels, they push a narrative. And oftentimes it's divisive. And I got disgusted by it. And if you guys ever, you're like, I might bitch and moan about something, and I may have opinions about stuff, but my goal is to never divide people. I don't care what people believe. It's a game to keep us divided, and it's a dark agenda that's been in play for a long time now, and it's ramped up in the last, I don't know, 15 years immensely. So part of what I want to do here is, bring people together. I'm a working stiff, man. I pay my bills. I have a job. I play music on the weekends. I'm never going to try to profit off of dividing people. It's just not There's no way, man. I could never be that way. Hey, man's joke. You clicked my brain the first time I watched you and Lee. You speak my language, brother. Well, I appreciate that, man. You got to see me when I was still wet behind the ears when it comes to streaming. I still am wet behind the ears, but, I've had a little bit of experience since then. Well, you guys are sweet, and I appreciate the kind words. Sincerely, I do. And, Philly and I have talked about this many, many times. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm the same exact dude on streams as I am in real life. I speak to people the same way. I don't. It's pretty much what you see is what you get. That's the way that I am. I don't, hold on a second. By the way, guys, somebody just posted, I'm not sure Ariana. Well, I don't know. Well, you know this, Ariana. Like, I started out on Devil's Advocate's show. That's how I know Captain 1-1, fellow East Coast guy. And thanks, sweet Melissa. I was saying earlier before you got on here, I had a gig tonight and I'm hoarse. My voice is hoarse. Singing for 3 hours. And I had some wine. So I may have started the stream a little buzzed, if I'm being honest. But yeah, the Devil's Advocates crew, man, I give those guys a lot of credit because most people wouldn't even know who I was if I was never on that show. Which, by the way, people don't know, I was never supposed to be on the Devil's Advocates channel. DA and I started a separate show together. It was more about the stuff that I talk about. So that was totally random the way that all played out. I'm sure Captain 1-1 knows about this. Well, you guys are really kind to me tonight, Renee. Thank you. Thank you so much, Renee. Well, it's been a journey, I'll tell you that, man. And one of my goals long term is writing. I do a little bit of writing, but I have no time to write anymore. But that is the long game for me. It's down the road when I can retire, if I ever can, is to focus on writing much more. So I'm here to build a community over time. And hopefully one day I'll write some books. Yeah, Captain 1-1, if anybody knows about this, it's him. Stingray is used by police is a type of cell site simulator, often called an IMSI catcher. It temporarily acts like a nearby cell phone tower, so phones in the area connect to it. Yeah. The beanbag gun. Well, I hope so, Shawley, because I've enjoyed watching you on Birdie's channel, and I've listened to you many times on Birdie Bombshells. And, I like when people have strong opinions, but the way they deliver their opinions is measured, because it makes it, for me personally, it makes it interesting. So I like all types of delivery. You know, people have their personalities come through, but I've appreciated listening to you on Birdie Show, and I'm appreciative that you are here right now and that I got to speak with you. And I look forward to speaking to your husband as well. Yeah, Ariana, this has for sure been discussed many times. All right, so Captain 1-1 is just expanding on it, what they do. Yeah, you know, if after gigs, I'm usually I rarely, knock on wood, have gotten like laryngitis. I mean, I used to play multiple gigs a week. And you know, after 2 nights in a row of gigs, I've done 2 gigs in a night numerous times. You get a little hoarse, your voice gets a little hoarse, but I'm lucky mine tends to come right back. It even at my age, it's never prevented me from doing a gig. Yeah, well, Shawley, we're gonna definitely, you know, have you back on, and like I said earlier in the stream hours ago, next Friday, I'm gonna have the Custody Queens and Ron on. It's gonna be 4:30 Eastern time, and that's gonna be really cool. And then I'm gonna have Big Amish Media on Saturday night for another late night stream. So it should be, quote unquote, should start at 10 p.m. Eastern time. So it'll be an hour earlier than I started tonight. And that's next Saturday. That should be interesting. We're going to dig into the Idaho 4 and we're going to talk about similarities between Idaho 4 and the Charlie Kirk cases. People have asked me this, Pop and Switch, and I have no problem doing that. I just don't like putting myself onto people. You know, when I'm playing a gig, it's different. I'm being paid to be there. But maybe one night, you know, I'll bust the guitar out, sing a few songs. I'm totally down with that. It's up to you guys, really. I wouldn't want to hijack a stream. Sweet Melissa, I do all kinds of music. I'm doing acoustic gigs now, so obviously it's toned down, but so classic rock, folk, old school country, alt country, some old 90s, you know, Seattle, you know, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, like a very broad variety of stuff is what I do. But I've been in bands that played funk, rock, grunge, blues, not a ton of jazz, but certainly jazzy type stuff. Yeah, I mean, you'll get to, I mean, if you guys want sometime, I have no problem like pulling out an acoustic guitar and trying to, you know, sing a couple of songs. The only reason why I haven't done it, because other people have asked me in the past, because I live in a apartment building, and when I sing normally, I sing loud, so I would have to tone it down. So you probably wouldn't really get a totally typical version of my singing voice. I play some Willie, Sweet Melissa. Um, yeah, for sure, guys. If I have no problem with that whatsoever. I'm not shy. So if you guys want sometime, I'll be happy to do that if the vibe is right. What's up? I don't even know how to pronounce that. Is that Miss a Schmish? A Schmiss? Miss a Schmiss. How you doing? Yeah. Oh man, Hangman's Joke. I was looking at buying a moto vlogging setup because I have an older GoPro and it's kind of sucks. Don't really like. I've done long motorcycle trips like crazy in the mountains and beautiful areas and in the desert and all this stuff. And God, I still have tons of footage, but maybe I'll bust out the GoPro and probably between when I bought it to now, there's probably been 100 updates to it. But maybe I'll do a ride one day. I'll do a little ride and talk. I'll take you guys on a little journey up a cool mountain pass to a very remote little mountain town. Miss Schmiss. Okay, gotcha. All right, cool. Oh, you missed hours, Miss Schmiss. We've been at it for 3.5 hours, right? At this point. And sadly, I'm gonna be wrapping it up in a little bit. Um, you guys know I don't mind. I've done 5-hour streams before at night, so I have no problem with doing longer streams, but typically I was starting earlier. Speaking about your bike, did you get over? Oh no, I did not. The claim, Curious Minds, they're jerking me around. They're like, the insurance company reached out to me for the claim and they're trying to like push me off now. Typical insurance companies, man. So that whole story, my brand new motorcycle got oversprayed by the road lining paint. You know, they spray the lines with. Yeah. But let's see. I have to work tomorrow night, but I may try to do a pre-recorded video during the day. It's just I went away for 2 weeks and then my whole schedule got turned upside down when I got back in town. So next Saturday I have another gig. However, same as today. Oh wait, actually no. Next week I have a gig on Sunday. So I can theoretically, I'm doing the stream with Big Amish next week. But next Sunday I could probably do a stream because I get done an hour earlier on Sunday than my Saturday gigs. And then Friday, it's very possible that I'm definitely doing Custody Queens Friday, Big Amish Saturday. And it's very possible I could do a stream Sunday as well, Sunday Night Live. Or Sunday Night Open, as I call it. So keep that in mind. Yeah, I agree. Curious Minds. I gotta follow up. I've been juggling a bunch of shit since I got back to Colorado. So if I do let me think about this. I get done with my gig at 6:00 my time, which is 8:00 Eastern time. So realistically, it would be, so if I do a stream next Sunday, I would do one tomorrow, but I'm working tomorrow night. If I do a stream next Sunday, I could start at, let me think, 6, 7, 8 p.m. my time, so 10 p.m. Eastern time. Let me think, 7. Yeah, realistically, I probably wouldn't be able to start earlier than 8 o'clock my time. Well, Philly and I joust when we speak sometimes. So I probably give her more of a hard time, and she gives me more of a hard time. Okay, so Foxy, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time will be Custody Queens and Ron on Friday. So it's 1 o'clock Pacific, 1:30 Pacific time. So that's what? 4:30 Eastern time. You'll see. I already scheduled it on the channel. Yeah, right. It's funny, guys. I planned on keeping this stream, and Philly will tell you, like, pretty light. But, a lot of fuckery in the world. Well, Shawley, I'd love to have you. And then Saturday night next week will be Big Amish Media and I. So I've spoken with him twice. All right. Let Philly handle it, the scheduling. But if you join the Discord, it'll all be posted on there, and the community tab on my YouTube channel. I'm real tired now, so I don't want to let my tired brain confuse anybody. All right. So listen, everybody. For everybody that came in tonight, I'm sincerely thankful. And, I am fading a little bit because I did play a 3-hour gig, not including setup and breakdown time. And I got to work tomorrow. So I really appreciate everybody. Pay attention, join the Discord. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and make sure your notification is set to all so you get notifications. And it was a fun stream. It was really, really good. I'm thankful we got you guys involved and participating. Good night to everybody. You all know who you are. I appreciate you. And I'll make sure if I have another bear encounter, we'll post it on Discord. So with that, everybody, stay tuned. We got some good stuff coming up. And I look forward to chatting with everybody again soon. All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you guys so much.